I have been blessed to be working with filmmaker Robert Townsend for the last 17 years. And I also had a chance to work with him before that on the movie Hollywood Shuffle. And I learned a lot about producing. What I want to do is give you the 12 points that I've learned working with Robert the last 17 years. Here we go. Number 1, underpromise and overdeliver. When you're working with someone or for someone, never overextend yourself telling them you'll get it really quick. Always give yourself a cushion, either of time or money. So if you know you have to have it in 5 days, take that whole full 5 days. Don't tell them, oh, I can do it in 3. If it's a $500 budget, tell them it's a $1,000 budget. Because one of the things that people love is to get things done early and get things done under budget. And as a producer, that is your job. And if you do it well and you don't overpromise and don't underdeliver, but underpromise and overdeliver, you are going to be a favored producer in Hollywood. Number 2, time management. Maximizing the 24 hours that you have in a day. One of the things that I learned from working with Robert is always do the biggest pieces first. And if you have priorities, make sure those are handled right away. Example, if you have to make a phone call that's urgent, take care of that immediately. If you have to handle paperwork that has to be returned to unions or managers or agents, handle that immediately. You want to take care of those things that are urgent first, those things that are real bulky first, so that you're not behind the 8 ball when you start working on your film and you didn't get it taken care of. Always handle the biggest pieces of production first and then deal with the little stuff later. It will save you a lot of heartache and it will help you relieve any kind of stress. And most importantly, please don't leave things for the last minute. You'll be glad you took care of it right away. Number 3, researching. Researching is very crucial when you're getting ready to go into production. You want to research the best people, the best locations, the best equipment, and make sure that you have between 3 and 5 different sources to pull from. That way, if something falls out or somebody doesn't show up, you can have backup. The problem a lot of times is that producers will only pick one location or one actor or one piece of equipment. And then when it doesn't work, the person doesn't show up, or you can't get the location, you're screwed. So make sure, for your peace of mind and to operate the best production you can, research, and make sure that you have 3 to 5 of everything that you need. Have 3 names of cinematographers or sound people. So if one person leaves, you're not in the lurch. Or if a piece of equipment breaks down, you know where to get it from somewhere else. Number 4, resourcefulness. It's not always about money when you're making a project. What I learned from working with Robert is that more times than not, it is about being resourceful. It is about you as a producer figuring out how you can get people to donate their services or their goods to help you with your project. Do you have a community of people, like people from your church or your job or your friends or family, who can come and help you with PAing, getting the catering, providing craft services, helping with locations? It is about how creative you can be in getting stuff done and getting stuff donated without having the financial backing to get it done. And this is where resourcefulness is so needed for a producer. Example, one of the things that we did in Hollywood Shuffle was we had a very large cast and we could not afford catering. So I ended up doing the catering and craft services. I figured out how much we needed to be able to feed this tribe of people. And let me tell you, we got it done and we had food left over and we didn't have to spend a large budget on food. So that's one example of being resourceful. Number 5, focus. As a producer, you must focus because you have to have all your wits about you when you're doing production. And you have to anticipate all kinds of situations because you are the one that's going to be putting out all these fires. You got to be sharp. Your focus has to be just clear. Anticipate unexpected situations and be ready to make adjustments. You have to have a cool head when you're doing production. Otherwise, things are going to fall apart and your production is going to go down the toilet. Number 6, rewrites. As a producer, you have to be close to the writer of the project because a lot of times when you're getting ready to do production, things change at the last minute. You can't get a certain location, you lost an actor, just things come up. And you need that writer to do some rewrites to help you. So make sure that you are in touch with the writer, that you are ready to talk to them at a moment's notice, and that they know to be ready to do rewrites on your behalf so that you can have the best project possible. Number 7, don't rush the process. Make sure that you give yourself enough time in pre-production to set as many rehearsals as you need. Bring in department heads to watch. Take care of all the necessary arrangements that you need, like getting your union papers taken care of and everything you need done in pre-production. Because once production starts, the meter is running. And if you waste time during production, you are going to cost the production a lot of money. So the more you can do in pre-production, the more you can take care of in pre-production, especially rehearsals, because that eats up a lot of time in production, working with the actors. Make sure your actors are available, your director is available. Find a location that everyone can come, including the production heads, to get a feel of what the tone of the film is going to be while you're rehearsing. Because if you don't, your production is going to go to hell. Number 8, know your worth. It is so important for you as a producer to know what skills you bring to the table. And please, never undersell yourself when trying to book a job. You know why? Because if you do, you're going to end up regretting it and you're going to end up hating that production because they got you on the cheap. Number 9, take risks. Don't ever be afraid to take risks. This is the area where you have to trust your gut. Even though people might say that's a bit risky, but if you know in your gut this is the right call, then you do it. Number 10, preparedness. As a producer, you should be over prepared for everything on your production. That includes having extra people in your bullpen in case somebody drops out. You're not worried because you got extra hands on set to get the job done. That also means that all your paperwork to the unions or all your paperwork that need to be filled out are taken care of before production starts. It also means that you have anticipated all the problems that could arise before you start production so that you don't miss a beat. It is so important to be overly prepared because that saves you money in the long run. Number 11, keep improving. As a producer, it's not what you know, but what you're learning that will help you for the next project. Every time you do a project, always take inventory and figure out what went wrong or what you learned so that you can carry it into the next project. One of the things that I learned on the last shoot we did was we had a lot of talent who actually didn't have transportation to get to and from the set. And we had not budgeted money in for that. What I know now is for the next production, we will actually have a line item to make sure that if we have any talent in need, we've got them taken care of. Number 12, make everyone feel special and needed. When you do this, it brings everyone together and it makes the production crew and cast feel like a real family. Please take care of your people. Make them feel special. Make them feel like they're the most important thing since sliced bread It really does make a difference. Please take care of your people. As a producer, that is your job. To love on them, to make them feel incredible so that they can give you the best work possible. Don't chintz on them. Make sure you feed them and give them breaks. Do not overwork them, please. Please, 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 please. Love on your people. That's your job as a producer. Yes, it is. With these tools, I was able to move from assistant to assistant producer and now producer. I have found these tools to be valuable, necessary, and transformative in every project I've done. As a director, you have to handle pre-production, production, and post. So take us through your pre-production.
Usually when I'm doing pre-production or development, especially with like narrative projects, which just means scripted work, I am trying to get into that world as much as possible. So I am researching, I am listening to music that is in that era or that time period or of that culture. I'm listening to news outlets. I'm listening to watching documentaries because I'm really trying to get myself into that world as much as possible so that I can really make it as authentic as possible. I'm talking to people who are from that culture or from that world so that I can really direct as much as possible, like an accurate portrayal of the people. I'm also, when I'm writing narrative work, at some point you got to get feedback. So I'm getting feedback from people that I trust that are giving me constructive criticism and saying, this is how you can make it better, or have you thought about maybe this or maybe that? And so once that is locked, because I think what I also didn't realize about screenwriting, not shorts, but more so with longer form, is that screenwriting is very much a science, and it takes time, and you got to be easy and gentle with yourself because that might take a little longer depending on where you are with your writing skills. And I just didn't realize, I think maybe they told us in film school, but I was just hard-headed and didn't listen and was just like, I just made this amazing feature. I just wrote it and it's good. No, you vomited a draft. That needs a lot of work and is horrible. Okay. So have learned over the years that, with writing, it takes a lot of pruning and it takes a lot of rewriting, and a lot of getting it right, a lot of perfecting, because Hollywood, unfortunately, can be very unimaginative. So you need to make sure that it's spelled out on the page.
You have your world created, and you use a lookbook.
Oh, yes. And then I create a lookbook, most of the time on Pinterest, just to get myself into this
What
world.
is that exactly, the lookbook?
I just take a lot of images that are inspiring to me, whether it's characters that I want to create or the place, the scenery, the music, and I'm creating this in a document and putting it all together so that when the production designer is like, oh, what are some of your references, or what's
so almost like a PowerPoint.
Yeah, PowerPoint, a mood board of, to a certain extent that really gets me entrenched in this world. I also create a soundtrack for that particular project because I'm like, this is the music that's really in this world. So I'm just trying to feed myself. It's like I'm like a rapper, like training for a battle, or like a Rocky who's like in the throes of it. So I consider myself like almost like an athlete when it comes to directing, because it's like I gotta just keep feeding myself with as much of that world that I'm trying to create. And even if it's not something that I've seen before, I'm still trying to take different influences and trying to figure out what are they doing
to stir you up.
Yeah, what's the universality of this storytelling that I really appreciate and I love. I love different filmmakers that are completely different,
So in pre-production, do you also start assembling your team that you would like to work with?
I create a lot of lists just because that's just how my brain functions. Like if there's certain cinematographers, I'm creating a list in an Excel sheet and saying, this is this person's name, this is their website, this is, how we contact them. And sometimes I will contact them, or if it's the producer, usually they'll contact them, CC me on them, and I'll either have, kind of like a pre-interview where I'll either call you on the phone or we'll meet and chat, and I'll try to vibe and try to see, does your vibe work with me? And I do that.
You vet them.
Yes, I think you have to. You have to vet everyone.
Yes.
I mean, even friendship, you know, you have to say, does this person work for me? Even a relationship, do we work for each other? Is this mutually beneficial for the both of us? Can we communicate?
What are your three?
Like you.
What are your three top questions that you're asking when you're vetting somebody?
Yeah, I try to get inside their head. I try to not tell too much of what I think of the project, and I try to hear, what would you add? You know, what would you contribute? What do you think are suggestions, or what's the world that you're thinking of when it comes to this particular project? Who are some of the people that inspire you? How do you like to work? How do you like to communicate mostly? If I text you, you know, in the middle of the night at like 10 o'clock because I saw this image, are you going to be offended? You know, I need to know, what is our shorthand going to be with each other, and if it can be something that is expounded upon or not. And I'm all for good people. I love humble, down to earth, hardworking people who can crack a joke. And if I don't sense that, I'm kind of like, you know, you could be as talented as you want. You know, you could be freaking the Godard of cinematography, but why would I work with you if you're, you know, being a dick? I'm good.
Now we're in production.
Yeah.
As a director, what are some of the things you are doing in production?
Yes, in production, we're having a lot of meetings. We're going to the location. We're taking photos. We're all the keys, which means basically keys just mean the department leads for that particular department. So the cinematographer, the location manager, the gaffer,
your set
designer, you know, all these folks, we're all in the same space. We're talking, we're communicating. And I love to hear also, what do they think would be best in this space? I love to
collaboration.
Surround myself around smart, intelligent people who are also very collaborative. Because if you can't be collaborative, that's one of the things that I kind of see in the pre-interview. Because if you're not working from a team player mindset, we can't do this. Like, film is not a dictatorship. It's very much collaborative, democracy. Yes, I'm the one calling action, but at the same time, I'm not going to sit up here and act like everyone does not have their key role and is very important.
As a director, what are your three main points that you have to do in post?
Yes, edit. You have all this beautiful footage that you've captured. Now you have to edit it. For me, that's always one of my strongest things that is very challenging, I would say, because for me, it's like I have to give, you know, someone my footage, and I have to trust that you're going to elevate the piece and that you're going to understand my sensibilities as a director or as a writer-director, depending on what format it is. And so for me, that's always a hard collaboration. And then I would say you have to do sound and then color. Sound just means like there are certain sounds that you hear in movies that are really like crisp
sound design
and amazing. Yeah, and you're like, what is all of this? And sometimes it's Foley, it's, you know, sound design, it's someone going in and crafting and molding the sound to just elevate the piece. And then you have color. The color is just going to make it even more prettier. And so, you know, you might want to draw out certain colors like yellows or magentas or whatever colors, you know, you're really happy with trying to do in terms of like that piece. Color is the last stage. And then depending on if it's a film or if it's a commercial or whatever, then you put it out into the universe and you say, hey, universe.
Give it the seal of approval.
Yeah.
You've done your production meetings, you've scouted locations, you're prepping for the actual shoot. Okay. Now comes the actors. How do you like to work with actors? Because that's a collaboration in itself sometimes. Sometimes not, but hopefully if it's working together, it should be a collaboration.
Yeah, that's why I'm so excited to get back more to narrative work, because I feel like with documentaries, it's like you just get it on the day. Whereas with narrative, it's like you're working, you're rehearsing, you're really trying to try out different things.
What kind of rehearsals do you like as a director?
I love like method and like getting into the actor's headspace of like, what are some instances that have happened to you that are similar to the script that we can kind of expound upon, and we can really draw out, and we can really create this world. But when we've created it, let's leave it alone so that we can still allow for spontaneity when we're shooting, because now we're in a good spot and we're in a groove. I don't want to ruin that, because then it doesn't allow for sometimes spontaneity to happen. And I'm someone who loves not being so fixated to the script. The script is a great template, but it's not everything. You got to know what you're seeing in front of you, and if it's not working on the day, you have to sort out, okay, what do I do? And I think for directors, it's great to take acting classes if you can, or speak to a lot of actors about, this is the type of language, I would like, or like actors like, when you're directing them. And I think it just makes you a better director to know the different types of methods that are out there.
What is the personality of actors that you like? Like when you're casting and you're saying, okay, I'm looking for Peggy Sue for this.
Yeah.
What is it in the collaboration that you're looking for with that actor in order to paint the picture?
Yeah, I would say I love actors who have range. I love actors who can almost like, you're in a down moment and you don't know that this scene is actually going to be in an up moment. And it's almost like, how do we tease the audience? How do we get to that moment? Because right now you're here, and that's going to be such an ebb and flow to get to that moment. So I love people who are willing to be vulnerable and not feel like being vulnerable is something that's yucky, because I feel like actors have this deep sense of vulnerability that is so beautiful to see on screen. And I love working with seasoned actors and even non-actors that you can kind of prune the performance to the way that you're just like, we're gonna keep working until we get to that up moment. I love people who are collaborative and who have range, actors
and who are open, because that part of that range is being open to direction, without knowing where it's gonna lead. Because I don't want to.
No. I love it. I love actors. I love meeting actors, because I'm just like,
well, no, because there are some actors that they come in, they know what they're going to do, and they're not willing to to be open. If you say, let's do an improv, I don't do improv. So
or it might be like not great, but I know with one of my films with Eve that I did with Project Involve, I was saying the name of her partner because I knew that it would elicit a certain reaction that I was not getting. And so I said her partner's name and it worked. So it's like, you only know this by directing a lot of different types of actors. So I would say, if you don't have money to go in film school right now, or that's not what you can do, I would say use your friends, see if they can be in your pieces, but then at some point put stuff on Backstage and put them on Actors Access, and see if you can also, as you're growing, that you're also growing with the talent, and the talent is showing you what they're made of, and you're really being tested as a director with, how do I get this person to really be vulnerable in this moment? I know what that person just said was so horrible, but how do I get them to be almost the opposite?
To be open. It's to be open. It's not so much a seasoned actor, and then I'm gonna get off of this real quick, but really well-trained actors allow for that vulnerability. They just come full. So wherever you take them, they're willing. They're a good dance partner.
Oh my
God,
God,
that they're just, okay, I'm trusting you're going to lead me. I may not know how I look, but I'm trusting you, B, to take me where I need to go.
Yes.
That it will be okay.
Yes. Yes.
You know, so I think that's great. Let's talk about your high profile commercial work, because you have you're like a little rising star in the commercial world as a director. First black woman to direct a Cadillac commercial, car commercial. You directed Reese Witherspoon, Janet Jackson, Rosario Dawson.
Yes, that was amazing. She's amazing. Oh my God, I love her.
Queen Latifah?
Worked with her.
You worked with Queen Latifah. There's somebody I'm missing. There's one more person. Am I missing one more person?
There's been so many. I'm like, I've been fortunate to work with so many celebrities and high profile folks, and it's just it just makes me pinch myself, because when I first came out here, yes, I wanted to do, you know, longer form and narrative, but I also was like, how am I going to make a living doing what I love? And so for me, commercials was a great opportunity to still practice the art of directing constantly, to still have something to show is really important to me. And so I'm so thankful that I've worked with like tons of brands now, but it didn't just happen overnight, you know. It took a lot of meeting different companies, showing them a lot of my narrative work, and then being like, well, you don't have a commercial. And I'm like, well, that's why I need a commercial. And finally I got the Girl Gaze opportunity with Levi's, which I believe is what has propelled me to get more commercial work. It was a branded short documentary on the Me Too founder. And so it was really, it's really wild to me, because she didn't know me at all. But somebody was like, you need to talk to that Britney girl, you know. And so basically a woman that I DP'd a documentary was like, you need to talk to her because she's trying to do this project with you. And so me and my crew of 6 women, we went in her home in Harlem and we made it work. And she just unfolded for like 2 hours. And I just was like, oh my God, this is so beautiful how this woman who does not know me from a can of paint is now unfolding in front of the camera and telling me. And then after that, I've just been doing a lot of commercial work.
What have you learned working with high profile artists in the commercial world?
I would say,
as a black woman.
To me, I mean, working with high profile folks, they are just like me and you. They just have a little bit more of a name. You know, I think it's important to realize they're people just like you and me, you know. And I think sometimes when we put them and we glorify them on a pedestal, that's when it gets crazy. I'm not going to say I still wasn't starstruck, you know, directing Reese Witherspoon. I'm like, I grew up on you, like Elle Woods, like, oh my God, like this is crazy. And I even told her, I'm like, this is nuts, but in a great way. And it was such a joy to work with her, because she's such a professional, an A-list star, and so personable. And sometimes that's not always the case. I've mostly had really great experiences with high profile people, because I'm also talking to them in a very down-to-earth way. I mean, if they have a suggestion, I'm all ears, but I'm also going to come to the table prepared.
I'd like to introduce you to Fanny's partner, Nelson Grande. Yes, that is his actual last name. It's on his birth certificate. That's how he was born. Welcome.
Thank you. Thank you very much for having us both here. Yeah, it's on my birth certificate.
Luckily, he is Grande. Otherwise, it'd be false advertising.
And Nelson is also an actor, as well as one of the partners at Avenida Productions, where they do a lot of wonderful things for the community, the crowdfunding, crowdsourcing. They put together films. They're working on a documentary on DACA that Fanny is directing. They have an amazing energy and passion and just direction of where they want to go and what they want to do for Latinos in the business. And I also want to mention that Nelson just finished doing a movie for HBO. The title again?
My Dinner with Hervé. Yeah, it was the biopic on Hervé. He played Tattoo, and most famously for Fantasy Island. I got Disneyland on the mind.
With Ricardo Montalban, one of our icons.
Yes.
Yes. And he just did a Grey's Anatomy as well.
Yes,
So,
yes. Well, thank you for that introduction.
you guys are in a romantic relationship, but you also work together, which is so uncommon
It is.
in Hollywood. And not only that, but you were a single parent. You're a single parent, and you guys brought your kids together. I think that's fantastic. Oh,
We're really in tune with each other and our mission in life and how we go about everything with integrity and passion and just wanting to give, give to our family, to our children, to our community, to people we don't know yet, to people we may not ever have a chance to meet. But it's one of those things that we both have this drive and purpose in life. It just matches. It mixes really well together on what we're doing.
so let's talk about Avenida Productions and how you started.
I was helping a lot of people on the side because I'm really committed to
Because you're
helping.
kind and helpful.
Yes, and then I was on a board of a nonprofit. Like, I was doing a lot of stuff. And there's one event that I put together sort of by myself. Nobody was helping me, and then people weren't being very kind. And he said to me, "Okay, you're done. You're done. First of all, people are taking advantage of you and not appreciating you. And then this is a business, and I think if we open a business, we're actually going to make a bigger impact."
To support myself financially through acting. Acting wasn't making that much money at the time. I have a love for business, interacting with people, and so I would have a lot of, I worked with a lot of startups and did a lot of independent sales jobs. So I noticed that Fanny was just always moving, always getting things done. We were connected through Facebook still. We hadn't seen each other in a few years. But
He was in one of my movies.
yeah, I was in one of her movies. That
Like
was, yeah.
14 years ago. Like
14
a long
years
time
ago. And ever since then, fortunately with social media, you can know what people are up to, even though you're not, physically in each other's presence. And I always knew her as a shaker and a mover. When we got together, I was able to see more of the reality of what she was doing, which was more amazing than what is really put out there on social media. The second thing I noticed was that she was highly underappreciated. And the third thing was, this is a business. This is a business. This is a good business because this is something that could benefit a lot of people. We're not out there selling, candy or sugar to people that's going to rot their teeth or any other kind of product. This is a product that has purpose and has meaning that could change people's lives and inspire people. We mixed our expertise. Fanny and her creative mind and her directing and filmmaking mixed in with my experience of sales and working with several startups became the perfect combination for Avenida Productions, and it was magic. Once we first opened, I want to be a little more humble, but it was almost like an instant success. Our first client was director Craig Moss with Danny Trejo. So that was our first client. We've been doing well ever since and really just being able to help out a lot of people.
So what we do is we help independent filmmakers. So to be able to work with us, your project has to have an element of diversity in a positive light, okay? Or something that if you have a diverse cast, you're highlighting an issue that needs, solving. We also help a lot of women directors because, as you know, extremely underrepresented.
Yes.
We work with the LGBT community, African American, any underrepresented groups in front or behind the camera. So we're sort of a team for hire for filmmakers. There's really not a lot of resources for filmmakers. So we believe that the way to transform Hollywood really is to support the independent filmmaker who's already doing it. They just need somebody to believe in them, to teach them, to coach them. Hey, this is how you do a successful crowdfunding campaign. Hey, nobody wants to buy your movie. Okay, you know what? This is how you do a talk campaign and you get your movie in the theaters. Or you can do a college tour. Or this is how you get it on Netflix, on Hulu. Or people have sometimes money, but they don't know how to produce. So jump on board and we sort of teach them how to produce. We really believe this is the way that Hollywood is going to be transformed, or at least one of the ways. And in a year, we've helped raise over $500,000 for projects. That's
Over 600,000 at this point now.
Yeah, so it's like
In just 1 year.
that's tons of projects of people that, they come to us and they're like really passionate and they become our projects. And then, you know, when they send us pictures from set when they're filming, we are so happy, you know.
Yeah. We get really emotional, you know.
Yeah,
We get emotional. Our clients get emotional because these filmmakers are sitting on these projects for 5 years, 10 years, literally. This is what they tell us. I wrote this 10 years ago. I just haven't had the outlet to do it.
Or they keep hearing no.
Yeah,
no,
they can no. They meet with us, and just a couple of months later, they have $30,000, $40,000, $50,000 in their account ready to make their movie. Now it's beautiful. This is a story that just wouldn't have been told.
Yeah.
How many people is that going to affect? You know, and sometimes, you know, it's not just the Latino community like Fanny said, it's LGBT, African American community. That's fine. We're not part of that community, but it doesn't mean it doesn't matter to us. What it is for us, it's equality for all. We're all beautiful people. We're all American, or some of us are not American. But whatever it is, we're really just trying to break that barrier and stop putting our finances and our resources again on, you know, these, you know, sequels that go down to the third, fourth, fifth installments of just massive amounts of CG with no real storyline and nothing with any actual substance. We're more than just a team for hire. We're your allies. We're your champions.
Yeah, our clients become our friends.
Yeah.
Somebody did a movie. She came for us for fundraising. Well, she had a crowdfunding campaign. It wasn't going so well, so we helped her raise the money. She filmed it also in Texas, in a small town. The entire cast is Latino. She's not. She just really believes in, like, giving these kids a voice. And then she came back 2 months ago. She's like, okay, we need to raise more money for post-production. And then we saw the rough cut, and it was so beautiful. We're like, oh my gosh, how did you do this? It's amazing. So then, you know, we started doing the fundraising for the post-production, and Harvey happened. So all her cast and crew are in that area, and we're like, we can't ask them for money. You know, we can't. Like, people are, you know, dealing with life and death. I mean, we kept turning, and, you know, she kept going. She kept trusting us. And it was amazing, right? Because people that had lost their home, they were giving $5, $10, $20 because they wanted their town to be remembered, to be, you know, to be celebrated after they went through so much. So she's a friend now. You know, she's a friend. Like, she's making this beautiful film that's highlighting and creating opportunities for kids of color to show their talent. And that's just to tell you how, like, we really care. Like, we really, when you hire us, you know, we don't charge a lot because we know that we're working with independent filmmakers.
So I, as a producer, have a project and I need some help crowdfunding. So I come to you. How much are you going to charge me?
It really all depends on what your goal is and how much work we think is going to be put into it. And we give you a realistic assessment of what it is and how we feel, how much you can raise. It goes project by project, really it does. And ultimately, if we don't feel we can help you, we won't take on the project for a few reasons. We're not going to take your money and just run with it, because that's not why we started Avenida. We started Avenida to help and make a difference. So if we can't do that, bottom line, we won't do it. Your reputation is everything, especially when you're just a year old, no matter how great it's gone for us. So we want to make sure that when we put our work into it, it's going to be effective and it's going to be a positive impact.
What is the biggest thing you've learned?
You gotta have the right partnership. That's the most important thing.
Absolutely.
You gotta have integrity. We just started the business. We hadn't, you know, you're supposed to save money and start with capital. We were just like, we're doing this because we believe and we trust, and we jumped.
We took a leap of faith. We opened this company on credit cards.
It's not like he has his own income and I have my own income. This is, you know, this is our livelihood. So I think find the right people, have a mission that's bigger than yourself. It's not about you anymore.
Right.
And you want to keep going. And then also have integrity. And also you have to have trust that the work that you're doing.
Trust in what?
Trust and grace. Every successful person out there will tell you there's a time where there's only so much you can do. You got to really step back and let grace do its thing. Whatever it is for you. For me, it's God, you know, for him, whatever. Just really trust that if you have integrity, you're taking actions every single day, you're doing something that's good, things will work out. But you have to let them. You have to let them work out. You know, you have to sort of step back and be like, all right, now do your thing. You know?
Basically, what you're talking about is partnership with God.
Yeah, for me.
For whoever God is to you, you're creating a partnership with God, saying, this is what I want to do. I need your help.
Yes.
I've done as much as I can. Now you have to open the doors.
Yes.
Okay.
We believe
I
that.
like that.
Yeah.
I believe that. I'm a big believer in you do your part and God does the rest. If you're committed to God and you're committed to being a good steward, then He's going to bless you.
And you gotta be grateful,
Mm-hmm.
right? Like,
Yes.
we're always grateful. We're like, thank you, God, thank you.
Yeah.
You know, like,
Yeah.
thank
I want to
you.
add something to that too, because when Fanny and I first met, I was at a point in my life where I wasn't happy. Prior to us meeting, I wasn't happy, and I was already getting to a point where I was accepting, like, okay, well, maybe, you know, Hollywood isn't for me, or, you know, it was just some kind of pipe dream, and I was getting ready to surrender to it. And I gave it one last hurrah. I said, no. This has been your life. This has been your dream since you were a kid, that you wanted to do this. You have one chance, one life. Get at it and do it. Broke away, took a leap of faith. Fanny was extremely instrumental in helping me in understanding, you know, that wasn't something in the past. That was something for the future. And I gotta say, you know, thanks to her, she really helped me tap into my faith. And what it's been there the whole time. It was just really dim. It was in there, but I had been in so many rough situations that I had thought it had gone away. And I surrendered.
She helped relight your
Yeah, she
flame.
did. She did. She threw a little faith fuel on top of it. And, you know, still to this day, you know, whoever it is that you believe God is to you, you just have to know that there is a greater presence. This world and this universe is just too perfect and beautiful, you know, to be something by accident. To reiterate what she said, it's that integrity, that faith, and being completely grateful. Really, it's just, if you don't stop taking those actions and you have all of that, you'll be okay. You'll be fine. And people feel it. People know it. You don't have to say it. People just know what you're about and that you're in line with being a good person, the best version of yourself you can be.
Amen. 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 I want to ask, since this show is about common sense, to talk about what you've seen in your business, as an actor, and in Hollywood, where you saw people not executing common sense.
Well, for us, people hire us and they pay us money, and they don't follow the coaching, and it breaks my heart, because it's like, if you just listen, you hired me to do a job. If you just listen, I promise you, it's gonna turn out. But then people want to look good, or they don't believe, or they get nervous. Crowdfunding is not easy. Producing is not easy, as you know. It's a lot of work. Making a movie is not easy. But you've hired us, so just trust us. If we take you on as a client, it's because we believe in what you're creating. Now you have to believe us. So it makes no sense to me when people hire us and then they don't do what we coach them to do. So I would say, please, you know, let the experts do their thing, and then you're expert at something. I'm an expert at something. So let us, trust us. That for me is the main thing in our business. In Hollywood as a whole and the Latino community, to me, makes no sense to wait for the system to create these opportunities for us. We have to create them ourselves. We have to create our own content, and we have to support each other. That's all we need, because we already have the buying power and the creativity and the talent.
You're my sister from another. Go ahead.
Definitely my first thing is also what Fanny said. You know, if you hire a professional team for something, you know, if you hired us for production, or if you hired us for crowdfunding or distribution, whatever it is, remember that you hired us because you knew we can do it. What are some common sense things about acting? I just think you know, do the work. You know, just know that behind you, there are 1,000 people who maybe look like you who want that same position. You know, be as ready as you can be. Be genuine.
And if you have a problem with the way Latinos are represented in the media or any other group, so then don't take on those roles. Like, we don't do those auditions anymore. We don't. We turn them down. If they ask him to do an accent out of nowhere, like it has nothing to do with the character, he turns them down. For me, it's like, okay, I don't go out for the maid roles anymore unless it's a full-fledged character that it makes sense. If I'm going to be a prop, I just don't go for those auditions anymore. Or the chola that, like, why is she a chola? Who's writing this piece? Is it somebody from that culture that's going to honor it? Or is it just, oh, we're going to be in the back? No, I'm not going to do that to my community. So for me, that is common sense. If you guys keep taking on those roles, that's how we're going to keep being represented. So, you know, that's common sense.
To get a little political, when almost half of this country is told by the current administration that Latinos are rapists and murderers and criminals. Yes, it's completely ridiculous, but if you think about it, a lot of this community doesn't know us. They don't interact with people of color, but the only representation of us they have is what's on their TV, what's on their movie screens. So when somebody tells them something just completely insane like this, well,
There's a doubt already.
yeah. there is that
And you
already.
have young kids out there that are Latinos that watch that and go, oh, that's what I'm supposed to be.
Yeah.
So it kind of feeds the monster. You know, it's like you have a culture who doesn't know us, or what they know of is either a gangbanger,
Exactly.
you know, or the housekeeper, the nanny who takes care of your kids, who barely speaks English, but they don't know her story. They don't know that she almost lost her life crossing the border to get here, that she got taken by the coyote, she got owed a lot of money. They don't know the real story, but they see a glimpse, and that's what they get.
They don't know that the gardener might have been a lawyer in his
That's
country.
right.
Like, we know these people.
Yeah.
And they also don't know, like, we're not all immigrants. Like,
Yes.
Latinos have been here for a very long time. You know, we're a fabric of this country. I am. But I know Latinos who've, like, 6th, 7th generation. Like, how many more generations is it going to take for us to be considered American? Like, we are American.
Well,
Yeah.
being a Puerto Rican from New York, when I came here and people told me to go to my country, I said, this is my country. I don't have a passport to anywhere else. I'm a New Yorker.
Yeah.
Hello, unless you're going to give New York a passport. That's where I'm from.
Yeah.
So, but it has been such a pleasure having you, meeting you, and talking with you. I really feel like you're my sister from another mother, girl. I love you so much. I see the God in you.
Thank
It makes me so happy to know that there are people like you guys out there. I get so excited because that is the message that I'm sharing with people. Come on, we can do it. We can make our own stuff. We don't have to wait for anybody. You know, there's ways to do it. I'll make this one last point because it doesn't start at the bottom. If you're paying attention, if you invest and you buy stock in these studios, you can go to the studio meetings and you can have your voice heard at the top. And that's where change is made, not down at the bottom where it's too late. So that's my time. I'm so happy to have had Fanny and Nelson, and I would love for you to go to their website and look them up, and if you need crowdfunding, they will help you if they can, and if they can't, they will tell you. And so your website is?
Avenida.tv.
Avenida.tv. I would like to introduce you to the one, the only, Mr. Reginald T. Dorsey. Welcome, Reggie!
Thank
So
you,
good
Lydia.
to have you. Mwah! It's so good to have you.
It's a pleasure to be here.
So, what did you learn when you started to produce as a producer that you did not know as an actor?
Two things. Everybody wants your job, and nobody knows what you do. Producing is challenging in the sense that you pretty much do everything behind the camera for the director in terms of making sure that his vision is achieved and making sure that everything is done in a manner that's smooth, where you're keeping everybody happy. You know, you're the puppet master.
I like to see it as the fireman.
Right,
You
right.
Put out the fire.
There's that too.
Yeah, that's how I
Yeah.
view producing.
Right.
It's like you're keeping everybody good. You good, everything's
Right,
good.
right.
You got to make that project move forward. And if
Yeah.
everybody's not good, you're not good.
It only takes one
That's
person
right. That's right.
to make it not good.
That's right. And you gotta go. You gotta sniff them out. Oh, is that what? Come here, baby. Let's talk. Come on. It's quite a juggling act.
Right. Those were two things that I really wasn't aware of before I started producing. You know, I'm like, so you want my job, but you don't know what I do. My first feature was a project called Steppin', and that pretty much taught me the game. You know, that's where I cut my teeth in.
And did you act in that one as well?
No.
Okay.
No.
So in this one where you acted and produced, how did you switch hats? Because that can get a little tricky.
Oh man, I never slept the whole time we were working on Kings of the Evening, and we shot it in Texas on location, right outside of Austin. I did as much homework as I could on the acting side before we started production, due to the fact that I was just constantly involved with the project day to day as far as the integral aspects of it. I was just able to make that transition pretty smoothly. It was all about preparation.
When you had to be in front of the camera to let go of what was happening behind the camera, other than the director, did you have somebody else who you could rely on, who was in your corner kind of helping you through?
Not really.
Okay.
You know, like I said, I did as much preparation as I could possibly do. And when you're prepared, a lot of the little hiccups along the way don't become astronomical, because, you know, you've already pretty much, I won't say necessarily saw it coming, but you were just ready for it. You know, I was pretty at ease throughout the transition. Preparation, again, is the key. You know, especially if you're trying to do both as an actor and as a producer. You know, I'm looking forward to doing it as a filmmaker as well as a director. You are keeping me on my toes, Lydia.
I'm glad I can ask you the hard questions. So, because, you know, that whole thing about ignorance is bliss,
Right.
No, it is not. It is costly, painful, and sometimes can end a career.
Absolutely.
So take us through the process of what a producer does.
Pretty much everything that the director needs to have done to keep a set moving smoothly. You want to make sure that your crew is happy. You want to make sure that your actors are happy. You want to make sure that you have everything that you need in place by the time you get ready to start production. Basically, you're the front line for any hiccups that happen along the way. I'd like to think that while the director has everything, you know, to focus on in front of the camera, that we're the ones behind the camera that's keeping everything smoothly and focused on that.
You're also overseeing the departments,
Absolutely.
the different departments, and you're also the person in charge of hiring the departments.
Right. And making sure that, you know, everybody is on point.
As producer, you did pre-production, production, and you handled post as well.
Absolutely.
So you took it from beginning to end.
Right.
So what did you learn in post, and then what did you learn in distribution? Because they're two really complicated steps in making a movie, or you know, any project.
Right. Post was probably the weakest link for me, because very few of us, even if we're making films, we don't really have access to that whole arena. I was able to gain a lot of knowledge, you know, going through post, as far as your digital intermediates, you know, taking film from film and actually running it through a process where it becomes digitized and then back to film again, and just the whole color correction process, the titles and things of that nature. And it was cool.
And you turned us on to, I produced Making the Five Heartbeats, and you turned us on to the best post house in Los Angeles.
Thank you.
I love Gareth Cook.
Right.
He kicks.
Yes, the foundation.
Yes. They were amazing, and that was because of you, because I was pulling my hair out like, what am I gonna do? And what makes it even better is that it's black owned.
Right.
And he's so professional.
Oh, yeah. He's one of the best in the game. I've been working with them for a few years now. I really want to make sure that we have an avenue to post-production and quality post-production. It's been exciting to be a part of what they're doing over there as well. You know, a lot of people, again, like you said, you know, they really don't know the process of what it takes to take a film through the whole process. But those guys, they are available, and accessible. And what you don't know, they will definitely make sure that you have the opportunity to learn.
They're high end. They can stand toe to toe with any of the production, any of the post houses. I mean, just superior.
And they streamline everything.
Yes.
I mean, they can get it in and get it out.
Amazing. Amazing. I love them. I love them.
And for me, that was one of the most exciting things about being a part of the foundation, was that I could invite other filmmakers of color in and let them know that they had a home. Because at the end of the day, that's really what it's all about, relationships.
But it's also very generous of you, because, you know, a lot of times people find these...
golden nuggets.
And they don't want to share. They will not. I'm sorry to hear that. And they keep going. No way. I can lessen the load for you. I can make it easier. But that's too bad, brother. That's too bad. It speaks volumes of who you are in that you are just a generous artist, period, not just in that area, but you've always been generous, which is wonderful to know people like you and to see how the cowboy community is. There's a community within the Black Hollywood that is really very supportive and generous. And I kind of started in that area first. Going into the Latino community, they were not so generous with me. You know, they didn't want to let me play in their reindeer games. I was like, what? I'm a nice person. What? Yeah. And it does make a difference. You know, we're fighting and we're struggling to put our stake on top of the mountain, and it really does make a difference when you have a community who says, go, let's do, let's be, let's, you know, and that's why I keep coming back to the cowboy community, because that is what you guys do. You know, like I will hear stories about, oh, so-and-so's horse is sick. Well, Oba showed up, or Glenn showed up, or Reggie showed up, or so, you know, it's like you guys rally together.
And I'm glad that you noticed that, because there's so many things that can go wrong.
Yes.
When you're, you know, handling a 1,200-pound animal, you know, whether it's through medical issues, or, you know, whether you're getting bucked off, or whether you need a horse trained, or things of that nature. So we have to depend on each other. And I really appreciate you acknowledging that. You know, that you've been a witness to that.
Oh, it's not only encouraging, but it makes my heart happy. You know, because you go, yeah, there are good people out there. Yes. And, you know, because I'm a believer that you got to support everybody. You don't have the luxury to say, well, that's too bad, brother. Right. You know, that because you never know when you will need it.
Absolutely.
You got to build that community. So then you went from post. You figured post out. And then you went into the devil's den.
Yes, I did. I went to hell.
So tell me what that process of distribution was like for you.
You got to do a lot of homework, you know, and a lot of good filmmakers and a lot of good films really never see the light of day, you know, because of that aspect of it. Again, I'd like to say it's important for you to know who you hit your wagon to. It's important to know who the players are. And that's why legal and agency representation is of the utmost importance. You know, you have to have a great attorney or a great representation or a great producer's rep to really make sure that you and your project ever see the light of day. That was one of the key things that I learned as far as distribution it goes. I'm better for it, you know, having gone through the process, and talk to different people who have gone through the process, get knowledge from them. To what you were speaking about earlier as far as the community is concerned, the film community, the cowboy community. One of the things that I learned when I came into the business, which pretty much kind of spoiled me at a very young age, is that on Book of Numbers, I was surrounded by filmmakers of color. I was surrounded by an African-American crew as well as a cast. And so, you know, at 13, I'm thinking, oh, this is going to be great.
It's all like this.
Yeah. You know, for the rest of my life. And got to Hollywood, and it wasn't, you know. So you have to find good people that are willing to share that information and that knowledge. Again, you know, to your point, so that you won't become obsolete or ignorant to the game. Again, you know, I was always able to take that spirit with me, you know, from when I was 13 throughout the arc of my career. I wanted to really help people.
It's not a black issue, a white issue, a Latin issue. It's just about money. And you may get on some projects where most of the crew and stuff is white, and they're fantastic. And you could get on sets where it's all run by somebody of color, and they are and so it's not really a color thing. It becomes a money thing, and it becomes
an efficiency thing.
Yes. And it becomes about how people talk to people that are working for them. You know, because at the end of the day is I want to be with an employer who's going to acknowledge me. Who's going to say, that was a great job. Thank you so much. Not somebody say, look, this is costing money. You better hurry up. Or make you...
That sounds like you really experienced that.
No, I have not. And or they run you ragged and then give you a blank timesheet.
Or a check.
Well, see, we just got to the timesheet, and then when I figured out what that was about, I said, I ain't signing that until you
Exactly.
Fill it out, because that's not how it is.
That's not what we negotiated.
That's not. Yeah, I'm from New York. You got
Right.
me once, and that
Right.
was on me,
Yeah.
but now it's on you,
Yeah,
and you will
yeah,
pay
yeah.
me. And I think it's important for filmmakers, the artistic community, when you are trying to do a project. It doesn't matter how much money the project is taking care of your people.
Absolutely.
Just appreciating what they do for you.
Yeah.
And it's like, I can make a project with $5. It's not whether I did it for $5 or not. It's how did I treat the people? Will they come back and work with me? Or did I just burn that bridge? I got the project, but now I can never go back to that group of people because I was such a that I worked with will work with me again.
Right.
And
right.
so, as a producer, I think it's important that you learn to really vet people so that the community that you are pulling from, you're pulling from people who are not only competent, but that they elevate life on the set.
No doubt.
Because
No
you're
doubt.
spending so many hours on a
Yeah.
set with people, and you could have the most talented people, but their personality is horrific, and one person can contaminate the whole crew. And if you don't get that person in time, you got mutiny.
Right. I remember a project, I won't call names, but back in the 80s, I was on a project, and there was an African-American director who was on the show. We were shooting in Nebraska. Basically, one of the crew members was talking some smack behind the director's back, and he was within earshot. And I learned this at a very early age, and he's a brilliant director, by the way, who I admire to this day. And he was like, get him a ticket, he's out. I mean, he immediately got him off the set and sent him home. He was not going to allow him to taint his set. So yeah, it's important that you surround yourself with like-minded individuals who get your vision.
We're two actors who have done the producing thing. There are so many more opportunities today for filmmakers than were available when we started, because you couldn't do a project unless you raised $500,000 or...
Even in addition to what you're saying, if you even thought about becoming a filmmaker, a producer, or director, you were arrogant. It's like the nerve of you to think that you can go and play in this arena over here where the real money is. We had to break down a lot of barriers. You, Robert, and everybody else included, that was coming up back in the day. And it's just a testament to, where our hearts were and what we were really trying to fulfill at the time.
Well, when you love something, you're going to see it through no matter what the pain is, right? Because this is not an area that people really study. They work so hard to get the film made. And then they're like, okay, I'm just going to get distribution. And they don't understand all that goes into distribution. And the playing field has changed. It has changed enormously since we started. In the past, it used to be you would sell a film to a distributor or a studio if you made it. And then they would take it over. You would get paid, and then they would take care of the residuals and take care of all the union stuff. It's not like that anymore.
Right.
They may take the film from you and give you $2 and then say, now you got to pay residuals. What?
Yeah.
You just only gave me $2. Residuals are like $500. What are you talking about?
Right.
And so there are all these little pieces in distribution that filmmakers are not aware of, or they'll take your piece and then they'll add costs and add costs and add costs. So you get the statement every month and you keep owing them.
Right.
Well, it costs us this. And so it is important for filmmakers to know before you take your piece to a distributor, see if you could self-distribute it yourself. The beauty of where we are at this time is that you can get a website and sell your product on your website. You can get a Shopify account, sell your product. You can pay.
Market it.
That's right. You can pay a company. They have these companies now that will take your project to Amazon and iTunes and different places so that you get a percentage. There's no middleman.
Right.
You at least get paid.
Right.
If you do the marketing and if you do the advertising and stuff, but it is a whole thing. And also filmmakers, when they do their budget, and I learned this the hard way, when you do your budget, you must also budget for marketing and advertising.
Absolutely.
And if you're going to run it in a theater,
Contingencies.
you need to know what that cost is. You know that it costs maybe between 12 and 20 grand to put a film in a theater for just 1 week. That's it. You pay them, and then whatever tickets you sell, then they give you. But you have to pay them, and then you have to bring the product in a DCP or however they want it done, and give it to them. And filmmakers are about creating, but then there's that business aspect that gets them in trouble.
Right.
So,
right. And even, on the
ooh, I'm hot. I'm so hot talking about this.
Even on the independent film festival circuit, you've got to have budgets to be able to fly your actors out to different screenings and premieres and press junkets, things of that nature. So, that's all the things that need to be considered when you're putting together a budget as well.
And don't forget a press person.
Right.
Because you have to have a PR company helping to promote that. Out of what we were talking about, is there anything that you want to contribute to that whole distribution process, or what you would tell people to stay away from? Or I know that you mentioned the agent and the lawyer are paramount in this.
Essential. They can make or break a deal, depending on who you have representing you. In addition to that, make sure that you constantly stay involved with the process of distribution. So many filmmakers will sit back and hand their project over to a distributor thinking that they're going to take care of them and have the same type of enthusiasm about their project that they do. And they don't. It's just that simple.
They don't? Really?
They don't. So you have to keep them accountable every step of the way. Even if you become a nuisance, it's your project. You've spent time with that project for years. Stay involved with your project.
I don't know anything about being a nuisance. I don't know about that.
No, not you, Lydia. Me either.
No,
but you know what? That's what makes a great producer. You are definitely the engine, that keeps your project moving forward. So it's important that you stay involved, and to the extent that you may rub some people the wrong way, but you have got to make sure that your project gets the visibility and the opportunities that it deserves.
Right. And I think it's important that you realize this is your job and you're doing your job, and keep your dignity.
Right.
And be respectful
Absolutely.
of people. But know how to debate. You don't want to argue, but you do want to be able to debate and make your case, and walk away still being friendly. Maybe not friends, but that you left it without blowing up a bridge.
Right.
Because the thing to remember in show business is that it's tiny. You're gonna run into those people all the time.
Right. Unless they owe you money.
Well, you're still gonna run into them.
Yeah.
They'll give you a face like, I don't
Right,
see him.
right,
I
right,
don't see
right.
him. But it's really important to know that show business is a very small community. There used to be this thing that 6 degrees of separation from Kevin Bacon.
Right.
I say it's only 2 degrees.
Right.
That I could pick up the phone and call so and so, and they know Kevin Bacon.
Oh yeah.
It's really that small. Especially the Black community, the Latin community, and the Asian community, they're really tiny.
Right.
And you could say whatever you want about us not getting as many opportunities, but the reality is, because it's just a small bunch of us, you get through the gate, you're in. Unless you do something really stupid and blow up a bridge, and then you're not in no more. But for the most part, what I have found in my years, the good thing is that I'd rather be a woman of color than be a blonde woman, because there's too many of them. So they really don't have as many opportunities. No, really. I don't know about you, but when I was going to acting class, I was usually the only woman of color there.
Right.
And there were all these blonde, beautiful young girls, and I was like, they don't stand a chance.
Hey, I like to tell people, just stay in your lane.
Yes.
And make whatever you do the it thing.
Yes.
Whatever that is.
Yes.
It's about staying committed to not only the craft, but to your brand and creating your brand, whatever that may be.
And not letting anybody else label you another brand, because as an actor you have to know you're the one who decides what you sell, because you're the one that has to go in there and sell it.
Right.
I could talk to you
And
all
let me
day.
just say this too.
Yes.
One of the interesting things about filmmaking and being an actor and a filmmaker is that at the end of the day, if a project is good or bad, it's not often that the filmmakers behind the scene actually get the credit for it. It relies heavily on the actor. Make sure, again, whatever your goals are in terms of the type of work that you want to do, the types of material that you'd like to develop, that you are sending the right message, and it's something that you can stand behind and be proud of.
We have one of our veterans with us today, all the way from New York via Zoom. His name is Victor Cruz. He is an actor, comedian, writer, director, producer, acting teacher, father, and husband. We are just so delighted to be able to spend some time with him and get to know who he is, because you guys need to know him if you don't already, which I'm sure most of you already know him. But anyway, I'm doing it again, okay? All right. So, Victor, thank you so much for joining us. So, I want to dig into all the amazing projects that you have done, that you've produced, you've written, you've starred in, that you've done. Because to me, Latino actors have to do more of that. We depend too much on somebody calling us for a job, and most of the times they're not coming. Those jobs are just not coming for us. We're not part of that group that's on the list. There might be 3 Latino actors on that list, but that's it. It's not open to most of us. And what I love is that you are constantly creating your own projects. So I want to talk about, you mentioned the first thing you produced was a stand-up show, so that you could have the time you needed and you could put in the comics that you wanted. I want to talk about what was the first film short you decided to do yourself, and why?
Yeah, so I think the first thing that I'm going to say produced, I didn't direct yet, but I'd written and produced a short sketch called Flaw and Order, which was a spoof on Law and Order. And this was a chance for me to play fun characters. I played this, this South Bronx girl called Awilda Lopez, which it was fun. I played a detective in it. And what happened was a friend of mine had called me and basically said, I think you're super talented, man. You play all these characters. You should do something with this. And he inspired me so much that night that I literally wrote that first sketch that night. And then I called him right away. I said, dude, I wrote it. Let's make it. And then suddenly I was too fast for him. So anyways, that was the beginnings. I wrote and produced that short, which eventually became a DVD called The Victor Cruz Show, Volume 1, Who is Victor Cruz? At that time, I was really still figuring out who the heck I was. I didn't know. So
what year was that?
That was in 2005.
Oh, wow, okay.
Yeah, 2005, I had started creating that DVD, and in 2006, we released it. And all throughout New York City, I was doing comedy shows, and I was harassing people after the shows to buy the DVD. I'd be holding a whole stack of DVDs in my hands like I was a rapper in the street trying to get you to buy it. And I would harass people so much that if they loved the show, then they would buy it naturally. But if they thought I was so-so, they would just buy it so I would shut up and leave them alone. And eventually, that sparked interest in me to want to get a little further and direct. And I went ahead and I was watching Yo Soy Boricua by Rosie Perez. Mm-hmm. And in that documentary, there was a little short piece about the sterilization of Puerto Rican women. And I'm a big fan of The Twilight Zone and Alfred Hitchcock Presents. And
so I'm gonna stop you. Tell us a little bit about that, because that actually was a period in history where Puerto Rican women were sterilized against their will or without knowing.
Yeah, so in 1937, a bill was written, or a bill was signed to make it okay to sterilize women on the island of Puerto Rico. And what they did was, it was based off of another method that was being used in the United States, which was called eugenics. It started in 1917, and it was a way of creating what the U.S. thought could be the perfect population, which is to eliminate, and they were targeting women of color, women who were physically disabled, and women who were just financially poor. They thought if they could eliminate those three types of women, that the U.S. would have the very best people. This was the mentality. The church fought it for a while, and they won, and they stopped this process of eugenics. When I did a lot of my research, what came up was that actually was the thing that inspired Hitler in regards to the Holocaust, this idea of a perfect race. So that idea had actually started here and inspired, apparently, him to do what he did. Now, they had stopped it in the U.S., but they had started it in Puerto Rico, and they thought that this would be the solution to help the island's financial situation, its current situation with overpopulation. And what they were doing was they had this method, and they presented it as if it were for the woman, but a lot of the times they were being sneaky about how this process happened. Sometimes they would ask women, did you want to get sterilized after literally giving birth to a child? And some of them were so out of it or under medication that they were not even conscious enough to make that decision, and they would help them to sign those forms.
Wow. So then you saw, it caught your attention on this documentary, and what was your process after that?
I saw it, she lightly covered it in her documentary. And I love that documentary because I thought she covered a lot of stuff. But she basically just touched upon it and then moved on. And I said, that's interesting. I didn't know much about it. So I actually went to Centro of Puerto Rican Studies, and I sat there for days. They have a lot of resources in New York when it comes to Puerto Ricans. And I learned a great deal about it. And I said to myself, I'm going to make a short narrative about this. And I'm going to kind of set it up kind of like a Twilight Zone episode, because I'm going to mix a little history, but I'm going to do something that's sci-fi in it to change up the narrative. And so I wrote a script that was 11 pages long, and it turned out to be a 15-minute narrative. I got some excellent actors to do it. It toured the festivals. It won a couple of awards here and there.
Now, were you just the writer-director, or did you, or were you acting in it as well?
I didn't act in it. This is the first time I was just behind the camera, and it was so liberating. No pressure to act. It was just me just enjoying calling the shots, and then obviously then creating a whole new version of that film once I was cutting it. So I really learned how to edit a film during that film. I was cutting that. So you learned the process of filmmaking during that piece. What was the big eye opener for you? Going into it and then actually doing process and going, oh, wait a minute, this is not what I thought. Well, I wasn't afraid of, I didn't become afraid. Like, I have friends who produce shorts who are actors, and they go, man, that thing took out so much out of me. I don't think I could ever do that again. It's just too much. For me, I thought to myself, I was like, what else can I do? Mm-hmm. And so it just sparked more hunger in me, like, what else can I do? And I then created another short that I was actually in called Congratulations, Mr. Gonzalez. And that one deals with a Puerto Rican actor who goes out to Hollywood, gets a big break, but in the process, something starts to occur to him and who and what he is. And it's pretty groovy. I'm going to share that with you.
Oh, great. Great. And are these pieces available so that anybody can watch it?
They're not available to the public because, sometimes schools in the past have invited me to show them and to have discussions with the students. So I use them as for that.
Okay.
But once in a while, I make it available for people to watch.
Okay.
Sometimes live.
Okay. Now, you also did a stand-up CD slash DVD that you produced yourself.
Yes.
Why?
I wanted to do my own album. I wanted to do an album, and at that point, I was no longer believing that you had to wait on anybody or get a deal. I started finding resources where you could upload your own album, how to produce your own physical CD and DVD. I knew how to hire camera operators. I knew how to edit at this point. I was like, I can kind of do this myself. I don't see why you would need anybody more than you to do this. And so I went for it. I went for it and produced it in East Harlem at a little spot called FB Lounge, which is not there anymore, but it was an extension of La Fonda, which is on 106th Street. So it was right across the street. And that place was packed, man. That place was so packed. I mean, the owners were very happy. There were people hanging off the ceiling. It was so packed. And it was a really awesome night.
Oh, so when is the evolution of the stockroom?
Yeah, so the album recording happened in 2010, and I had started writing. So when I came out to LA for those 7 months, I wrote the stockroom while I was in LA. Again, everything is very quiet in LA. I'm kind of new in town, so it's not like I'm going out every single day. I discover a place called the Coffee Bean, and that's where I'm at from the morning to the night with my laptop, and I'm talking to myself in the corner, and I'm creating characters. And yeah, so I written the stockroom in 2012. When I came back to New York, I was prepared to shoot it in 2013 with no money, but I was trying to raise money. And originally we were trying to raise like $200,000 to make the movie. It was really hard to raise $200,000 to make that movie. I mean, it was just so. I was like growing a beard. I was not well health-wise. I wasn't seeing my family. My daughter was just born, and I think my wife just had to sit down with me, like, "What the hell? Look at you!" I was looking like Tom Hanks and
Wilson. Yes.
Me and Wilson were there just trying to make this movie. So anyways, I just decided to pull the plug on it because I have a lot of people in my corner. Like I have a spiritual family and a spiritual teacher who just kind of, she was like, you got to stop. You got to stop and you got to listen and you got to take the time to do it correctly. So in 2014, we shot the movie. And we ended up shooting between in-kind sponsorships and actual physical money. Like I used my own money, and some of it we raised. It probably ended up costing us about $62,000 to pay for everything. That was probably my film school. I learned how to direct and edit with the shorter projects, but this was my film school because I got my ass kicked on so many levels. I really put myself through the ringer. I wasn't sleeping, it was a tough time, and I didn't give up. I kept making the movie, and a lot of good came from it. But I think looking forward, and the advice I always give people is you don't have to make a movie that way, especially not today. Make a movie within your means. Be realistic. You can still make a movie. It's fine. Just don't kill yourself in the process.
So, something you said made me think about this, because as I was prepping for this interview, I was thinking about your work ethic. And you can't create a lot of content if you don't have a good work ethic. Can you share some of your work ethic with us?
Yeah, my work ethic today is better than it was before. But what happens with me is that once I start producing something, once I start creating something, I'll make it all the way to the end. I don't quit. I don't stop, because now at this point I'm so invested. I've already invested a lot of blood, sweat, and tears, and a lot of people in the process also helping me too. You know, and it's not that I don't want to let them down. I also don't want to let myself down. And without putting that into words, because sometimes I don't say that out loud, but I think if I think about it, I'm saying I can't let myself down. I know that I have it in me to finish this project, and so I'll finish it. But the way that I work now, you know, to answer your question, the way that I work now is I do a lot of research. I take the time to understand what goes into a particular thing or particular project. And then I just look and see if I can fulfill that, if it's realistic within my own means and with my time.
So you're counting the cost before you make the investment?
For sure, for sure. I'm not going to sacrifice the things that I need to provide for my family. But I still am going to take a risk on myself. It's just a little bit more calculated today.
Today, we have the pleasure of having this amazing young Latina on fire. Not only is she an actress, a producer, she's also a solopreneur. Please help me welcome Ydaiber Orozco. Welcome,
Thank
Ydaiber.
you.
How are you?
Very good.
Oh man, I'm so excited to meet you.
Likewise. I can't believe we have not met before.
I know.
With all those friends in common that we have.
So tell me, where are you from originally?
Venezuela.
And how did you get to the States?
Well, my background is in hotel management. That's how I started, or my professional career life started as a hotel management manager. And I moved to Orlando to work in that field. And while I was working in Orlando, then I continued doing the acting that I was doing on the side in Venezuela until I eventually made it a priority.
Okay, so let's talk about how you got into acting in Venezuela. How did that come about?
It was pretty much like, I'm not going to say school plays because it's a little different than here. You know, like the school plays back home are not necessarily like you go on audition and then you get cast and you present it. It was more like, oh, we're going to do a show at the end of the year. You're in it, you're in it, you're in it. And everybody else was like, okay. I was like, why am I never picked? I was never getting picked to do these shows. So I went and I did my own. I think that's how also my producing career started, because I was like, I'm just going to create my own thing if you're not going to invite me to the parties. So I literally got together like the kids that lived in my building, and I picked a play. I picked El Avaro from Molière, which, I mean, it couldn't be more like
difficult,
challenging. And I was like, oh yeah, we can do this. I gather all of them, gave them instructions like, you're the director, you're the costume designer, you're like, so I had those instincts already of putting groups of people together. I cast it basically. I said, you're gonna play this, you're gonna play this, I'm gonna play this. I'm not gonna give myself the lead because I don't want to be so conceited. And then once I got into college, into university, then they did have a theater group, and I kept doing theater all the time until I moved to the States.
Now you're in Florida. When did you decide to go to New York?
Well, it was really interesting actually, because I feel like my career, I owe this person the spark of telling me this once. So I was going to this school, and a teacher of mine actually,
where was the school?
In Orlando. And I was taking, you know, camera classes, commercial classes, everything that I could get my hands in Orlando, which at that time there was not a lot. He said to me, you know what? You need to get out of here. And I'm like, oh, what do you mean? And he's like, you need to go to New York or LA. And I'm like, oh, okay. How do I do that? And he's like, why don't you find a summer school? Find a summer school. I'll help you prepare for it, and then try it and see how you feel like. And that way you can decide if that place is for you. You know, try one first. And I'm like, okay, I will do that. I was basically like just doing everything he told me to do. So I auditioned for the American Academy of Dramatic Arts, their summer program in New York, and I got in. That changed everything. That was the one thing that changed everything. So I did my program, went back to Orlando, and I was like, I'm out. Grabbed my things and left.
You get to New York, you're studying at the Dramatic Arts School. When do you decide it's time for me to now do this professionally?
Actually, when I got to New York, I was looking for another school, and that took me probably, I want to say, a year or two to find the right place. And that's when I found the Ydaiber studio. So
William Esper.
Okay. Yeah.
Excellent.
So at the Esper studio, I did their conservatory program for 2 years. Once I was done with that, I knew that I just had to continue professionally pursuing work, which I was still kind of doing some work on the side, even though they don't encourage it. Occasionally, I would go and still auditions for commercials and book something here and there. And then once I finished with that, then I was full on.
So now you finished your 2-year conservatory program. and you're starting to go out on auditions, did you start booking? Because you're like queen of the shorts. You have a long list of shorts.
I do.
Did that start in New York for you?
Yes. So part of it was, again, my own decision of creating my own content. So a lot of those shorts are my own productions with my husband, and a lot of others I just happened to book. But I think that I started actually more commercially. I think that was the first introduction that I got to professional work.
What kind of commercials? English speaking, Spanish speaking?
Mostly Spanish.
Okay.
Mostly Spanish. Occasionally I would do, a lot of commercials that don't really have any dialogue. Then I would book some of those as well. But yeah, the accent has gotten on the way, definitely, several times, which, it is what it is at this point. So yeah, so I was doing those commercials, and then I started doing voiceover work in Spanish. I was doing a lot of small theater productions, mostly in Spanish, until I eventually started booking some English work, which was very encouraging. But as far as the film work started, because I literally told my husband, I'm like, okay, we need to do our own thing.
And your husband does what? What's his background?
So he started as a photographer, but then he also went to take classes to learn other sides of the art. So he went and did production and direction and cinematography, a little bit of everything at NYU. And having that base knowledge and that base practice gave us enough to start. In New York, there's something really beautiful that happens, which is people really come together to create work. The part of the business that is a little bit different than here is that not everybody is necessarily expected to get paid, and they're okay with that. So when you're starting and you just want to create, you are finding like gaffers, photographers, cinematographers who are like, yes, let's do it, just for the fun of it. So that's how we started.
Oh, what's the name of your production company?
It's called La Sayona Productions. So La Sayona, it's kind of like a version of what the Wailing or La Llorona is.
Okay.
So that's the Venezuelan folklore name for it. So La Sayona Productions.
Okay, fantastic.
And we collaborate with many different writers. Like, we're not writers ourselves. We have written a couple of things, but we have worked with writers who have been like, here's my project, and we're like, oh sure, let's do this one.
What is the collaborating process when you're working with writers? What have you found to be helpful, and what have you found not to work?
I think that if you're using somebody's script that it has already been written, it's a very different process than if you want a writer to create something for you, which is usually the route that we go.
To have somebody create something for you. Okay.
Sometimes either we have an idea that we want to work around it, or sometimes we just give the writer parameters about certain things that we know are ideal for what we're doing, whether because of budget or timing, location, whatever it is. So many times we would go and, there's one particular writer that we have worked with several times, and we would be like, okay, 3 actors, 1 Latina, 1 location, horror. And with that, he would come with ideas. How about this? How about that? So that would be what has worked for us the best. When we take somebody's script and be like, okay, we're going to do this, I find that there's less of that creating process from the beginning. So I feel I'm personally more engaged when from the get-go we go and say, I think we want to do something around vampires.
When it's truly collaborative, as opposed to you getting somebody's project. The first time you did your own production, you didn't make yourself the lead. Has that changed?
Yes.
Oh, good.
Yes.
Good girl. That's how we want to create content, so we can highlight ourselves.
Yes,
right?
I think that being humble and all of that's wonderful and great. But let's be honest. I mean, what do I want? And if I want to be able to put myself out there and have people see my work, I have to give myself permission to do that. I was listening actually to a meditation this morning that talked about giving yourself permission. You have to allow yourself to give permission to follow your purpose. And I am allowing myself to do that now.
It's easier to navigate New York and getting people to support you and help you with content and be part of a team because people are more eager in New York, and they're not necessarily looking for you to pay them, especially when you don't have the money for yourself. It's hard to be an independent
It is.
Producer and independent content creators. So when you were doing it in New York, did you just reach out to friends? Had you already created a base of friends that were in the business that you could say, hey, Tito, let me tell you what I'm doing. Come and join the party. You know, Maria, come on over. Carmen, we I'll make some food. We'll do this
Definitely,
thing.
there was a base.
Okay.
So there was one cinematographer, Edwin Pagan, who we adore. He's a fantastic photographer and cinematographer.
Yes, he had an exhibit a couple years ago.
Yeah, los seis del sur. And he also is into the horror genre, which is what my husband is into. So I love it, but I want to do other stuff too.
Right.
So the latest projects we've done are not necessarily horror, but we started mostly with horror because of Edwin's interest and because of my husband Leo's interest. So I was like, sure, let's do horror films. So he has a platform that allow us also to reach out to people because he's well known. I mean, like people respect a lot of his work, and I admire him a lot. And for us, we took him as a mentor, and we were like, okay, well, teach us what you know.
Beautiful. So what made you come to Los Angeles?
So there was a moment when I started feeling stuck, which I think it happens to a lot of us.
What does that look like?
For me, the way it looked like is I was consistently going out for commercials. I was booking some. I was consistently doing theater. Sure, great, very great for my soul, very for my creative soul. But then I was not having any bigger opportunities. I would have like one TV audition every 6 or 8 months. So that didn't look to me like that was enough, and I wanted more. I think it always, my desire to move forward comes from wanting this so much. So that passion is just like, hungry. I want more. I deserve more. I know I can do more. And the weather really got to me. I mean, I was done. Actually, when I left was like the worst, snowstorm in I don't know how many years. And I was like, thank God I'm out of here. So that was part of it too. I feel I am more creative and more active in 70, 80 degree weather. When the sun is shining most of the time. I'm okay with the rain, but in the occasionally snow. But it was, to me, 4 or 5 months of cold was not conducive for creativity.
How do you navigate LA? Did you know people?
I didn't know anybody. I think I knew one person who I had coincidentally go in New York to support his short film. I reached out to him, and he was the kindest person ever, and he referred me to his agent, and his agent took me in. It was literally that easy, if you can call it easy, because it was my first contact, my first meeting, and it worked out, and I started with my agent, who still I work with till this day. I booked my first commercial, I think, within the first month or two, and then that gave me some leverage. So I was like, okay, so now that you're representing me commercially, can you represent me theatrically? And, it was not easy. He was like, okay, well, you have to audition again. And I'm like, oh, okay, I'll do it. Once I have my representation in place, at least my agent, then he gave me some confidence to be like, okay, what's next? Classes. So to me, it's always like, okay, let me find a good class.
What kind of class did you get into?
First, I went to the BGB studio because BGB gives you the opportunity to kind of see 7 different teachers, and you kind of have an understanding of how their studio run, and you can pick, and you're like, oh, okay, well, I think I connected more with the on-camera teacher or whatever you connect with. And then I started going to LA on-camera training, who I love. It's a couple, actually, husband and wife, and he does the drama and she does the comedy, and they are fantastic. So they're my go-to studio now. But that also starts creating a community of collaborators and people who are like, oh, why don't we do something together? And then, funny enough, some of my New York friends started moving here.
What's your way of making friendships?
I think it has to happen very organically, and it also comes from a place of admiration. I think that when you're going in a class or you're going to see a show or a film, and something moves you about that person or something interesting sparks, you're like, okay, I think I could work with this person. But it has to happen very organically. I think that you probably are been in those situations where you know that somebody's trying to get something out of you, and it just doesn't feel right. So it has to feel right. It has to be somebody who has the same work ethic that I have. That to me is very important. So somebody who's willing to put in the work.
So what is your work ethic?
I'm tough. I'm very type A. So, and I think that's why I make a good producer, because I do have my checklist and I do get things done. And if I say I'm going to do something, I'm going to get it done. So I think that people who know me appreciate that. Not sure my husband always does, because it's like, oh my God, take a break, lady. I think that when I see somebody similar, and not necessarily that has the same exact style,
Right.
but the work ethic of the responsibility and the willingness and the excitement and the passion, then that's a match. So
They come from your tribe.
yeah, exactly.
yes.
And and the people who, like I said, a lot of the people who I've been working with recently has been people who were in New York. So that even if I didn't work with them there, I know them from then. And it's like, oh, yes, these are my peeps, But I have made very, very good relationships here in LA, which I'm very excited about.
Now, I want to get to money and how you support yourself as an actor, because you came out here pretty cold. You didn't really know anybody. Did you have a job set up?
Nope.
Nothing.
Nothing.
Lovely. I love it. Okay, so you come out here, no net, nothing to catch you.
Nothing.
How did you start? You had to make some money.
It was a very interesting process, because when I first came in, I was very fortunate to have some clients in New York for my voiceover work who were still hiring me. So my first year was a dream. It was like, oh, I get to go to the beach and I get to record a couple of times a week. So it was a really nice transition.
So you had clients that allowed you the affordability to be here.
Yes.
Did you set up a studio in your apartment?
No, they were hiring studios here in LA. They were like, oh, you're going to go to this studio and record.
Okay, so you
it was
didn't have
very
to do
easy.
anything. Okay,
It was
go ahead.
very easy.
Okay.
Literally at once, all of those opportunities started to fade. They were like, oh, we're going to have to hire somebody in New York because it's costing us a lot to have the studio. And then the other one would do some similar reasons. And it just happened that all of them left at the same time. And I was left with nothing. And I'm like, what am I going to do now? Another job came in where I had no experience whatsoever in, which was as a staff writer for an app. Nice, easy job. I mean, I was doing a lot of research, which I can get into it because I like learning about things.
Because you're an A person.
Because I'm a type A. So I'm like, sure, give it to me. I want to learn. It was a great job because it allowed me the flexibility to audition. I was working from home. But I knew that was not going to last because it was a startup. And it was like, I don't know, this could be a month, 2 months, a year. And it lasted about a year. After that year, that's when I was really in deep water. Because that job didn't pay enough to give me savings and to keep me comfortable for a while. And it got tough. It got really, really tough. And I didn't know what I was going to do. I mean, of course, my plan B is always to go back to my hotel management, hospitality, event planning life. But I didn't want to. I tried it and I lasted a month. I lasted a month because I booked a commercial and my employer was like, is this going to be a problem? And I'm like, you know what? Yes, it is. It is going to be a problem because that's my priority. So that lasted a month. And then I was like, oh my God, what am I going to do? I had to take some classes to get me in the right mindset of being okay with having a job other than being an actor.
So tell me where you took these classes from.
I went to the Actors Fund. There are classes on finances, there are classes on careers and understanding what else you can do besides acting. There's a lot of services, free services that a lot of actors don't even know about. I didn't know about that.
Yeah, and it's also open to people in the industry who are not actors.
Correct.
So if you're a comic, if you're
a makeup artist,
editor. If you're an editor, if you're a camera person, you can go to the Actors Fund and get these classes, which are amazing. And there's a woman there called Ydaiber, who we actually have interviewed, so you can check it out. We have the link right here, so you can watch her videos. But how did Miata help you?
I think Miata was the biggest wake-up call I ever had when it comes to money and finances. Something that till this day I tell to my fellow actors is something she say to all of us, but of course I take it like if she was telling me, you have to take responsibility for your money. And expecting that your art is going to finance the rest of your life could be a little unrealistic. And when she started putting the numbers in that board and was showing us what it meant for somebody who had, let's say, 7 guest stars, which is a dream for any actor in a year, and how that would not cover the cost of living in LA, I think that all of us were like, this is real. We do have to figure something else out, And it's I admire so many of my friends who are able to live off their acting and I really, really love the fact that some people are able to do that. And I think that a lot of us aspire to eventually get to that point. But while that happens, I am completely okay now, today, with the fact that I have to have a job. And a job that might have nothing to do with it, but still gives you some sort of passion, fire, excitement, because you don't want to be caught in a miserable job either, because then that's the other problem.
Right. And sometimes it's also being a little creative, knowing what your special skills are, so that maybe the job is within the industry that you can still climb, you know, because as a producer, someone who has done production, you could probably also get producing work, you know, get into a looping group. Those groups are kind of closed, but sometimes you can get in there, especially speaking another language, because that's something that is always needed. Even though you have an accent, that accent can be used to your advantage. It's not necessarily a disability.
Right.
You know, and I think that's important for the people who are watching this to know, is that what you might think is a disability is actually your selling point, is actually the thing that can get you the job as opposed to somebody else.
Right.
And so it's looking at the business in a different way of how do you own your skill sets and use them to make money in addition to pursuing your acting. And you did something extraordinary. Take us to, first of all, what you did and how you got to that decision.
So looking at my skills, as you're mentioning, with the help of somebody at the Actors Fund, made me realize that a lot of those skills are definitely transferable. You can just use the same set of skills that I use as an event planner, are very similar to the same set of skills that a producer needs. Very similar, just instead of a set, it's a wedding. That gave me a lot of perspective. And while I was thinking about what else I could do, I ended up having a medical situation that required me to go in a very strict diet till now, that eliminated a lot of the things that we all love: sugar, caffeine, alcohol, so forth and so on. And I needed to do something for myself that made me feel I was at least enjoying some sort of the food I was taking. So the financial decision came after the product came. So I started creating things in the kitchen, just like we create things as actors. I just started creating things in the kitchen, and I came up with a cashew butter. And I took this cashew butter and I packaged it in glass, because part of the restrictions I have on my diet is that I cannot store anything in plastic. So I packed it in a glass, and I started gifting it. I was like, oh, this is delicious. I started gifting it to my friends. And then one of my friends was like, you need to sell this. And I'm like, really? And she's like, yes, you need to sell this. So I sent it to all my chefs friends in Orlando and New York and my event planner friends. And I was like, guys, please, I really need feedback. Every single person was like, you need to sell this. And I'm like, okay, I'm doing this. So now I use everything that I learned at Miata's class and talking about a side hustle. And I was like, okay, well, this is going to be my hustle right now. I don't know if it's on the side, but this is going to be my hustle right now. And I went to a business center for women. They're no longer open, but in Sherman Oaks, there was a business center exclusively for women entrepreneurs. And men could go too, but that was the concept. And they helped me register the company, come up with them. Everything, I did it within a week.
And the result
is spread
nourish. Ooh, I love that. Spread nourish, people. We want to spread nourish. So you have this is
so the cashew butter became now I added
matcha cashew
superfoods in it just because I wanted to add nutritional value as well. So it was not just a cashew butter. So I have a matcha cashew, cacao.
Oh, so you have a small one.
Yes.
Oh, how cute! It's the mommy and the baby.
And I have the dad at home because I have even a
and there's a bigger one. Papa couldn't come out today.
Yeah, not today.
He's at home taking care of everything.
Papa's sold out right now.
Papa went on vacation. Okay, and then this is
cacao hazelnut.
Alrighty now.
It's kind of like your healthy Nutella.
This one
is turmeric almond.
Oh, turmeric almond. Yummy.
And that one has honey in it.
Delicious. I love it. This is awesome.
Thank
you. And where can we buy these?
So I have an Etsy page. I've been invited to a farmer's market that I've been doing once a month. It's a little far. It's in Summerland.
Okay.
But that
Where's
little
Summerland?
town is next to Santa Barbara.
Oh, okay. So you go up.
But that little town has embraced me with open arms, and I just love going there. We're by
wonderful.
the beach. It's once a month, so it's a lot of fun.
That's beautiful. And there's a farmer's market here in North Hollywood on Sundays that does organics and vegetarian stuff. You should
Great,
also
I should check it out. Yeah, I just
that
applied
out.
to the Studio City one.
Okay.
So I'm waiting to hear back.
Okay. But this place is hip and happening too.
Yeah, I'll
so
check
you-
it out. And I'm
you
so
gotta-
close. I live so close.
Yes.
So.
First of all, I love you. I love your
Thank
entrepreneurial
you.
spirit. I love the fact that you kick ass.
Thank
I
you,
love
try.
that you are not letting anything stop you
No.
and you just keep finding opportunities, taking the challenges and making them into opportunities.
Correct.
That is what we're supposed to do as artists.
Yes.
To take the challenges and turn them into opportunities. So I love it. What would you like to be doing in 5 years from now
Okay.
as an artist?
As an artist, yes,
Yes.
for sure. I definitely see myself moving into feature films. It's not like I'm done with shorts, but I think I'm ready to produce my first feature. And I expect in 5 years that feature has to be out and
Excellent.
done. So that's definitely one of the things. I do aspire to do a lot more TV and film work, but my expectation is that my business and my acting takes care of my finances.
Self-taping as an actor. Things have changed since when I started. You would go into an office and you would read and then you would leave. And now it's all about self-taping. So take me through the process of how self-taping looks like for you.
Well, I do have the advantage of having a filmmaker at home. So,
Okay.
so I do have to disclose that because not everybody has that. But sometimes he's not available, So I think
So
that
when he's not available, how do you self-tape?
friends, you have to have, again, your tribe. You need to be able to count with a couple of people that they will be there for you when you need a good reader. And if not, then there are services. I mean, there is this girl who I adore, Cass, the line runner. She has a self-taping services and a coaching service, and it's very affordable. She's in Hollywood, so that's a very affordable option when I don't have anybody available. But other than that, I think every actor needs to have their backdrop, their light, their mic, and their phone. That's all they need, and you can definitely produce self-taping with good quality, with good production value that are going to be seen by the industry.
What do you think the pros and the cons are for self-taping?
I think not always doing safe taping. When you're not always in the room, you cannot really show your personality through a self-taping because you have a second of a slate where you're saying your name and that's about it. And then you go right into the scene. So having that personal human connection of, that we're having right now, I miss that. However, the advantage of self-taping is that your nerves are a little more under control. And if you're nervous, you get to do it again. And if you're still not hitting something, you get to do it again. Many times we go into those rooms with casting directors and we get one take. So I think the goal for me is to get that first take to be it, even during my self-tapes. Because we can go crazy. We actors are like, oh, no, let me do it again. And especially when it's your husband taping you. So we have been making an effort to be like, only a couple of takes. Come on. Gotta treat it as if you are in the room. So, yeah.
Please welcome Luisa Leschin. While you were doing commercials, there were a few occasions when you got to work with the casting director and be a reader.
Yes.
I want to talk about what you learned from that.
I was doing a lot of Spanish language commercials, and so casting directors approached me and said, hey, will you help out and listen for the accents? Because, they varied so much. Anglos don't know if they're hearing Puerto Rican, Cuba, whatever. The one thing that I have taken away from casting, and even as a producer, writer, and stuff, there's levels. There's people that walk in and they're like, boom, head and shoulders. And it's like, wow. And they are above the crowd, and it's just that next level up, and they're undeniable.
That it quality.
Yeah, they walk in and they just have that chispa, the whatever. You can't really buy that. You can't really study that. You can't really, you just have to have that. And if you're fortunate enough to be there, you just stand out right away. I don't know if it's fair or unfair. It's just what it is. When I was working on the George Lopez show as a writer, producer, and I would go to castings, I got incredibly upset and disillusioned, and because people would come in, nail it. I mean, nail the character, nail the audition. You're like, it's gotta be this guy, or this woman. Our executive producer would go, yeah, they really nailed it, but you know what? He would overthink it, and he'd go, maybe we should go opposite, and get something twisted a little, and not have someone who nailed the jokes, nailed the character, nailed what we had in mind. Let's go against the type of this. And it never worked. And what would happen is somebody else would get cast. It wasn't their fault. The jokes wouldn't work. We'd have to change jokes, and then we'd have to reduce the jokes. And finally, what would end up happening is the executive producer would go, you see, day players are just awful to work with. They just don't bring it. And it was like, no, I saw this happen. I saw how this happened. And it was depressing.
Sometimes actors think that it's their fault.
No.
It's their fault that
Yes.
they didn't get it, and they
Yes.
don't understand the process. So this is
They don't understand.
important to talk about.
Nowadays, it's gotten even worse.
When you were on George Lopez, you would have casting sessions. You would get to see unfairness happen.
Yeah. I mean, the way the business has changed, now the auditions are on video. Rarely does anybody come in. What generally happens is you're in the middle of your workday, production day, and, writing. And, I mean, you're just inundated. And, oh, my gosh, now we have to cast this part that's going to work in a day or two. And what I would see the execs do, and sometimes, you're looking at it on your iPad. And you open it up, and it's like, the part of Kathy. And you have 8 to 10 to 12 choices. You see the little tiny headshots.
Right.
And
The thumbnail.
Yeah, the thumbnail. And I, as an actress, made myself a promise that I would open every single one and look at the auditions. But, other director, executive producers, they would just go, okay, she looks like she might be the part, and skip a bunch. So from the thumbnail, there's already a cut sometimes.
That's why it is important to have a hot thumbnail that gets people's eye. You got to start right at that point. It used to be your headshot. Now it is the thumbnail.
The thumbnail, I would try to make it look like the character. There was a case here where we were on set, we're shooting, and we had to cast a really important part for Just Add Magic. And the director's directing, and I'm sitting there. I said, well, I'll look through the castings. And I see these pictures in there of women, and some of them look too glamorous, to this, to that. But I had made myself that promise, so I'm going through all of them. The very last one looked nothing like what we thought. And her picture was too glamorous. She was very done up, and I'm like, that's absolutely not the part. She gave an amazing reading. She looked nothing like the thumbnail picture that was there, and it would have never been opened by other people. And she ended up being a recurrent. She did about 6 to 8 episodes.
Wow.
Yeah. We cast a girl who became a regular for a recurring for 3 seasons, and she taped herself. It can go all different ways.
There is no formula,
Yes.
but what you want to do is be prepared. You started as a dancer, and then you went into acting, voiceovers, and then writing, and now you're a producer. You're a showrunner on series. I want to talk about actors that you see that come to the room and aren't prepared, or that videotape that aren't really prepared, because now that they're not coming in the room and they're coming
in the room, yeah.
taped. How do you see people on tape that?
Honestly, no. I mean, that's, I think, what was so painful for me, was that I would look at the series of 8 or 10, 12. Every single one of them was terrific. I mean, nailed the joke, had the timing, fully prepared, every single one of them. So what was painful was the showrunner and the directors. We would all make our selections, and then the showrunner was the one who would make his final pick. And all these other people who did wonderful jobs were kind of gone. There was no accumulation. There wasn't like, wow, let's remember this person. I mean, occasionally that does happen. You go, this person was really, really awesome. Let's try to remember. But no one actually writes down the name.
Moving,
I mean, ideally you would write the name down,
right.
Or occasionally I would send a little note to the casting director, go, great casting call, or this guy was awesome. Occasionally, if I had the time. which I think if more of us did that, it would, because I know what that does to people, for people. There was an example where there was 12 women who got in their car, put the makeup, put the clothing, go through traffic, and it was one word. It was like something almost false, and it's like, oops. That was it. Everyone was amazing, fantastic, did a great job. We selected one person. Something else came up, another woman, it was like a teacher role or something, and I go, can we not cast from these women? Or at least call them back for, and it's like, no, we'll just do a separate casting. And it was like, so it's hard. It's hard.
We have an incredible filmmaker and his actress, director, producer wife with us. I am so excited to introduce you to a lovely man named Kenneth Castillo, who is a kicking ass director. He has done 7 feature films independently. Let me tell you something, that is not a small feat. It's not a small feat to do 1 feature film, let alone 7 and with distribution. Hopefully by the end of this interview, you will be empowered to go make your own film. Please help me welcome Kenneth Castillo and Karla Ojeda. Welcome.
Thank you. Wow.
Welcome.
Quite the introduction.
Well,
I'm blushing.
I have so much to ask, so I'm just going to dive in. First of all, how did you get started in entertainment?
I started acting in middle school and got the bug. And then I decided that's what I wanted to do for the rest of my life, was be on stage. And so I went to theater school, and that's where we met in college.
Wow. What theater school did you go to?
Los Angeles Theater Academy.
Oh, fantastic. High school.
It's a conservatory program, so it's very intense. It's on a college campus. You basically are there 24/7.
Wow. And you grew up in Los Angeles?
I grew up in East LA, yeah.
Oh, wow. And how did you start? What made you want to get into entertainment?
Well, I've always been into movies. Like I watched The Godfather at a very young age, and I kind of lost track of what I wanted to do when I got out, and I thought I wanted to be an actor. I went to this acting academy, and that's really where it started for me. It wasn't until later I really got into writing and directing way later, after we got graduated, and I realized that I'm not that good of an actor, but I'm a pretty decent director and writer, so...
I'm going to stop you. You're an excellent director.
Well, thank you.
Excellent. I was looking at some of your work yesterday.
Oh, wow.
Beautiful, beautiful.
Thank you.
Especially the Cholo Chaplin.
Thank you.
Love that. That is so... Not only is it unique, but it's so innovative. So I want to talk about your process as a filmmaker and writer, because you write your projects and then you shoot them. So let's start with the writing.
All of my films are very personal. I use the urban genre as my backdrop. In terms of writing the script, I usually come up with an ending and a beginning very early on, and the idea would just get sparked by the simplest of things. I'll give you an example. Like on my second feature, while I was editing,
Tell us the name of it.
Ghost Town. I had a trilogy of films called the Drive-By Chronicles, and Ghost Town was the second in that trilogy. Ghost Town is based off a part of this city that I grew up in. I didn't grow up in Ghost Town, I grew up in Wilmington, and there was this part of Wilmington where a lot of drug families were conducting business, and for years, decades. And when I was doing Sideways, which was the first film in that series, a newspaper article had come out that the ATF had arrested a lot of the people there. I knew about these guys when I was 7. And now I was in my late 30s at the time, and they finally busted all of them. So I just came up with the idea, what would a love story in that area, what would that be? And so that's how Ghost Town came about. It wasn't necessarily about drug dealers, and yes, they were involved, but it was a love story of these two people coming together and leaving that part of the city. So that's how that one came out. But in terms of writing, for whatever reason, I'll see an ending, and I go, that's how I want it to end, this is how I want it to start. And then I have to earn my ending. A script can take, I've written scripts in 10 days, I've written scripts in 3 weeks. This current script I've been working on for past 5 years is like my Godfather 2. It's my opera, my urban opera. I can't get to my ending. So it's just taking me a long time with that one to get there, because I have to earn it or I have to change it. And I'm getting to a point where now I'm not liking the ending as much. So maybe I just take the story and see where it goes.
let me ask you a question, because even though you didn't go to film school, you did go to theater school.
Mm-hmm.
What were some of the principles that you learned in doing acting and theater that you were able to transition with into your film making?
First, the discipline and the approach to the work as a craft. It's not about validation. It wasn't about attention. It's just really about acting as a craft. I learned the craft of acting, and that gave me a huge edge in being able to work with actors. I'm an actor's director. I've been called that. I definitely consider myself that because I know the language. My job is to build the confidence and get as much of who they are into the character. That's what I tried to do. So I had that, going in. And then in terms of directing, when we were at this acting academy, we had to direct our own scenes. And I was always, at the time, I wanted to be an actor, right? But directing came so easy. I could see it very clearly, how this should be blocked. I wasn't really taught anything. And so I brought those principles, to filmmaking. There's usually a 2-week rehearsal I have with the actors on a stage. And we'll talk about character and relationships so that when we do get to set, because they have, a maximum of 5 takes, but sometimes it's 3, sometimes it's 1. But when I lay that foundation down, it makes the work, the film work, because film can be so technical sometimes, it can make it go by a little easier.
You just hit something that I don't think a lot of young filmmakers really focus on, and that is the rehearsal process.
Well, it really starts with the audition. I don't use casting directors. I had experience, and Karla has had experience with casting directors. I'm in the urban genre. They don't get it. They don't understand it. And they don't know how to cast that. So I developed a process where I wanted to weed out good actors from good auditioners, because I think actors that come here and take cold reading workshops and all that, they can't sustain a character. That's where I'm looking for the actor. So my process weeds all that out, because what I do is I'll bring someone in, and if I sense something, I'll bring them back for the callback, but the callback is also with other actors. So they'll work together, and I'll see who can work together, where the relationships start to be authentic. For a film I did called La Guapa, I had 5 possible leads, and I only had one Anthony Fernandez played the lead bad guy in that, and it's Guapa's his wife. I brought all 5 of them back, and the only one that wasn't intimidated by him was an actress named Grace Serrano, and she got the part. But it was a 3-hour process to get that. It's like I conduct my auditions like an acting workshop. So by the time we get to rehearsal, there's already an establishment of how I work as a director. And there's something about having the director in the room. The actors step up a little bit more, because it's not just the casting director. And I try to make them feel comfortable. I want them to do well. You know what I mean? Like, you're asking an actor to be vulnerable, At least give them the respect and try to make them as comfortable as possible. Some people don't care about those things. To me, it's all dealing with human emotion and vulnerabilities, and I don't believe in manipulation as a director.
Well, the important thing also, I think that a lot of young filmmakers have to understand is that as a director, you are taking the responsibility of somebody. You are opening them. Mm-hmm. So they have to trust you, and that's crucial for an actor. If you're directing me and I'm not trusting you, I'm not giving you anything.
Right.
It's not going to work. So I think that is so valuable that you do give them that, because they get a sense of how you're taking care of them, because you're the daddy here.
Right.
You got to let them know that you're protecting them on set no matter what. You're not going to let anything happen to them. So it gives them the permission to go as far as they can. The
biggest compliment I get is when people are just normal moviegoers that come to my screenings. They just go, "Where did you find this actor? Wow, I really like this." How did they take note of the cast, and that makes my job a lot easier once we're on set.
Marigold, the Matador, had no script. He would give us an idea of what was happening in the scene and what where he wanted it to end, and so you can't do that if you don't trust.
Right.
Even though we're married and, I know what he's thinking, I have to be able to trust him, and he has to be able to trust that I can get there with the character. I think that is part of that is his ability to communicate that. And sometimes it's not communicated, and you have to just trust that you're in the right place. And being on set as an actor with him, very few directors that I've worked with work the way he does. I love working with him.
You made her audition?
Well,
what the hell is that?
My goal is to make sure that the movie is as successful as it can be, and if it means that I'm not in it.
And the actress was Lydia Perez. I don't know if you know Lydia Perez, but she played her mother, and we actually, that's a crazy story. We were going to shoot that particular scene at midnight on a Sunday at a bar that I wasn't working at anymore, but they loved me, and they said, yeah, you could have the bar from midnight to 6 in the morning. Fantastic. But we had gone to San Francisco with the family, gotten an accident on the way to San Francisco. Still went after we got all checked out at the hospital. Came back with a damaged car. Thanksgiving rehearsal was Friday. Thanksgiving was Thursday when we got back. Friday was rehearsal, and then it was Saturday, not Sunday. We shot at midnight with Lydia and my daughter at this restaurant. That's an example of you don't stop. You keep going forward. You know,
an amazing free location. You have everyone booked. You're not going to cancel unless you just.
I mean, if we had all gotten injured, it'd be a different story. Thank God we didn't.
The show must go on.
Yeah, pretty much.
Yeah.
No, and I went to work. I went to work the day after.
Yeah, the next day after her 12 to 6.
That's independent filmmaking.
Yeah.
You got to keep going because you got the location for one day. You don't have time to play.
We shot in the LA River, and that's a whole nother thing of permits and stuff. And it never rains in LA. But of course, that day it was like thunderstorms. And I'm like, we're not going to be in the LA River with my family and my cast and get washed out. So I made the hard decision with my producer, who knew this was going to cause her some pain. I said, honey, we're going to have to reschedule. She's like, okay, no problem. She was great. I mean, she was really good. She actually was my assistant, and I made her an associate producer because she was so helpful that I asked her to produce this film, and now she's gone on to produce other things. So
that's excellent.
Mostly female crew, with the exception of the DP.
Yeah, me and the DP were the only, and the one male actor.
Okay, another question. The DP. Have you used the same DP for all your projects?
No, I've been fortunate. I've worked with, I guess, I have a lot of work, so I've worked with about 4 or 5 DPs.
Okay.
And one of them, Scott Daniels, who did Marigold the Matador, he had worked with me on Cholo Chaplin. Mm-hmm. He's been in my life for like 20 years. He's like really doing really well. He's a cameraman on James Corden's show now. He's doing really well. Very talented young man. And then Mike Teston's another filmmaker. He's a director in the horror genre. He was my DP on 3 of my films. Yeah.
You do some really interesting camera
Compositions,
shots.
yeah.
Yes, I love it. I am so into Korean dramas.
Oh, wow.
And what I love about it is that some of them you could see that they storyboarded every shot. You know, every shot looks like a picture. And some of your work looks like pictures.
Mm-hmm.
So do you storyboard, or is that just
no,
you guys
I don't storyboard.
Instinctively doing?
Because I write all of my scripts, by the time I get to set, they are storyboarded, but I know exactly in my head what I'm going for. And my DPs have all liked the fact that I know what lenses I want. Now, some directors don't. Some directors care less. They say, this is what I want, they let the DP interpret it. But I tell the DP exactly what I want. And every DP I've worked with has appreciated that. The only time that I would say I didn't do that was with Marigold. I had to trust Scott more, and Scott's a great shot composition. You know, he does great shot compositions. I attribute Marigold a lot to him. And what's interesting is he's there, and maybe I see he's off a little bit, and I'll just tap him on the shoulder, and he'll make the adjustment. When I work with Scott, it's like we're one, you know, because I'm not in Village, I'm over his shoulder. But with all the other ones, you know, I know when I want to use a 35 to a 28 to an 85, and I can call those things out. And a lot of the DPs I work with really appreciate that I know my lenses, I know, you know,
important stuff.
But I don't storyboard. I don't shot list. I only shot listed and storyboarded for one film. That was because the DP requested that. For us to have a decent working relationship, I accommodated him on that one because I knew we didn't have a lot of time or money. And so I'm like, if this is what you need, then let's do it. I don't necessarily like to work that way, but let's do it.
Let's talk about distribution. It's nice to make a film, but if you keep it in the closet or in your computer, it doesn't help anybody.
No, absolutely.
Maybe talk about when we went to Cannes, because that's really where we...
Yeah, I would say...
Well, let's back it up.
Yeah.
You went to Cannes, a Mexican in Cannes. Let's talk about
Cholo
that.
Chaplin went to Cannes.
Wow.
Yeah, we had done the first, I guess it was 5 episodes of The Misadventures of Cholo Chaplin. This is way before Coco, and I mean way before Coco. And we got into the short film corner, which is pretty much an open forum for any short films. But we...
At Cannes.
At Cannes, yeah.
Okay.
And we had my very fortunate friends that and my parents gave us money to go. So we had just bought a house. So I was like, we can't really afford to do this, but we got to go, you know. So we went, and that was a huge education in terms of distribution. This is, again, before, like, digital content. And so we went there, and I met a guy named Peter Broderick, who basically said, you've done a ton of work here. Do not give this away for free. Package it, sell it. That was when self-distribution was first coming out. This is 2008 now, or 2007. So when we got back, that's what I did. I had my best friend who was in graphic design at the time. She created a DVD cover. I had 1,000 DVD printed from a printing house, and I had this incredible DVD that looked like you would buy in a store. And submitted it to every film festival I possibly could, and Latino Film Festival, and got rejected by everybody. I said, okay, I have this very cool DVD. I'll just go to these festivals in LA that have rejected my work, and I'm just going to hand out my DVD. And so in doing that, there was a production company, distribution company at one of these festivals, saw it and said, wait, what is this? Why, I have to have this. We can sell this. This is awesome. This is exactly what we're looking for. And I said, well, it's only 30 minutes because they were short films. That's 5-6 minute episodes. He says, well, can you give me 90 minutes of content just so we could package it? And I said, look, even if I give you my raw footage, it wouldn't be that. He said, well, do you have any feature film scripts in the urban genre? I said, of course I do. I didn't at the time. I just had treatments and, ideas. He said, listen, we have money for 3 films. And if we like what you're doing, you could be one of them. And I said, okay. So I'm working on the script right now. I'll have it to you by the end of April. This was March. And then I had to get to work. I actually had somebody that was going to give me $50,000 to make a feature film. So that's how I got distribution for that first project. In self-distribution for my short films, I got the attention of a distributor. The key to distribution in the independent world literally is genre specific. If you're doing science fiction, if you're doing horror, you're not going to have a problem getting distribution. Those aren't my genres. And I've tried to come up with ideas, but you never want to make something just so it can get distribution, right? I've been fortunate that the urban genre is my genre. I grew up with this genre. I love this genre, and I love making movies in this genre. I was just fortunate that it is a popular thing. I mean, you have Queen of the South on TV, you have Narcos, you have Mayans MC now. It's a popular genre in spite of the blowback they get for stereotypical characters. I love it. I love the characters, and I love the drama of it. That's essentially what I always tell people. If you're doing your coming of age story that your grandfather told you when you grew up, like, it's really going to be very hard for you to get distribution. If you have Brad Pitt attached to that project, it's going to be hard to get distribution. You have to look at what is being bought out there. I'm not saying you have to cater your creative vision to that. I'm just saying, know ahead of time, is this going to sell? And sometimes it's hard. Marigold the Matador, I know was not going to sell. I knew it, but I had to tell it anyway. Now I have it, and I'm focused on Netflix. Now there are avenues. It's not really distribution, it's just streaming. You can get it on Amazon Prime, you can get it on iTunes, your film, you can get it out that way. But true distribution is the company is putting some time and effort and money into promoting your movie. There's several ways to get your film out into the world now. But essentially it is through streaming. Netflix is the only one that pays up front for their content, which is what I'm saving Marigold for. That's the only thing. Counterpunch was a boxing film I did that got on Netflix. It ran for 2 years, and we didn't go to Sundance. There were Sundance films that didn't run that long on Netflix. It was a boxing drama, and that genre is popular. So it really is genre specific in terms of what you're doing, but you can get your stuff on for small fees on Amazon Prime and on iTunes, and a lot of filmmakers I know do that. Is there a lot of money involved in that? Not really.
What I've seen happening in distribution the last few years is that the distributors are raping the filmmakers.
Mm-hmm. Oh, absolutely.
We've done several films where we didn't get what we should have gotten, and now they put it that they'll buy your work, but then you've got to, if you have union actors, you have to pay the residuals.
You're on the hook. The
they're so you're not really making anything. They're taking and making money off of you.
This is the problem. The unions are they're never going to catch up. They're so far behind on this. This is why I'm always critical of our unions. And I know a lot of actors, and I'm starting to see it now in the audition process, where actors are either going SAG FICOR, or they just want to keep their SAG eligibility. They don't want to be SAG because they know there's more independent work out there. But the problem is there's so much need for, and I hate the word content, but that's the word I'm going to use, need for content. That stuff is being made all over the world, and it's being distributed all over the world, and the distributor controls the numbers. We don't have access to that, and they're not obligated to give the producers access, especially if it's a straight acquisition. So to give you an example, like Beasts of No Nation was one of Netflix's first acquisitions from an independent filmmaker, and they paid $12 million for it, and it was a $3 million budget. They did pretty good. Now someone told me, yeah, but what if Netflix made $100 million on it? I'm like, who cares? I go, because what would you rather, that you get nothing and then them tell you, oh, well, it didn't do as well as we thought it would? And that is the big lie. And you can get paid, but then you have to get attorneys involved and audits involved, and as an independent filmmaker you can't afford those things.
And that's another thing you have to be aware of as an independent filmmaker, is when you sell your project to a distribution house, you want to get what you can up front, because you're never going to get the back end.
Absolutely.
Never.
That's the best advice I can give any independent filmmaker, is get your money up front. There's no such thing as back end in independent filmmaking. There just isn't.
And they charge you for everything. It's just like when I worked in the record business. If you came in as an artist, you were immediately in the red. Your album had to go platinum, not gold, but platinum, in order for you to recoup stuff.
Wow.
They use the same formula. It is, we paid for marketing, we paid for distribution, we paid for ads, we did this, we did that. You never see that they did anything, but they have everything itemized, and there's no way you're going to get $2 back from it.
Right.
You're just not. And I personally think you have much better access to self-distribute.
Absolutely.
To make your own, to make a good living off of your project, than to give it to somebody who is not really going to do much, because everybody's not going to get to a Netflix. But you can recoup your money, and you can do well if you know how to utilize social media, if you know how to create a network for your projects.
There are very few filmmakers I've seen to be very successful in that, because that takes a whole different set of skills, and it also takes a lot more effort. And those aren't things that I'm very good at. I'm good at making the movie and getting it out there, but in terms of marketing, I just find it so... I don't like people that are constantly selling themselves, especially when you look behind. I always tell people, go deeper, look deeper. And when you look behind someone, the loudest voice in the room has usually done the least amount of work. And the person that is not the loudest person in the room, they're not, because they're working.
Right.
So.
Right. But I think in your case, or any filmmaker who really has a tremendous amount of good work, they need to partner with a loudmouth.
Oh,
they
absolutely.
need to partner with somebody who can toot their horn and has that business savvy to say, you know what, we do better if we stream through Vimeo as opposed to Amazon.
Right.
We do better if we do it this way. Let's go ahead and prepackage our own product and sell it on our website.
I always tell people, I say, look, success in this business is two things. It's you doing the work, and then the person that can get you to that next level, them noticing. It's not about who you know, it's about who knows you. I haven't met that person yet, but I've continued to do the work. But I'm striving to get up here. You know what I mean? I think a lot of times I'm seeing people, independent filmmakers, that they're more concerned about having something to post on social media, that they're doing something. So I'm seeing a lot of people start things but not finish them. And when they do finish them, more care has been put into the red carpet gala than the actual film.
You are a seed that, even though, people might have counted you out and buried you, you are getting ready to just come through the ground like bamboo.
Wow.
You've been doing your films underground and doing excellent work and getting better and better and better. It's just a matter of time before it shoots up.
Yeah,
No one hustles like he does.
No.
No one I know. He is one of the most disciplined artists I know. He wakes up in the morning, takes my daughter to school, goes to a coffee shop of his choice, writes for 3 to 4 hours, goes home, takes a nap, and goes to work. At work, he comes home with napkins, with ideas. He comes home the next day, does the same thing. He writes every single day. Some days he writes 2 sentences. Some days I got home and he's like, I'm on fire. I just wrote 10 pages. But he does it every day, whether he has met his expectations. He's very hard on himself. He's like, I'm not doing anything. I'm like, you're working on 4 projects. You're working on 4 projects. How is that not doing anything?
So you are a great example of a healthy artist.
wow, thank you.
You're a great example of a healthy artist who keeps moving the ball forward. And it doesn't matter how many paces. What matters is you're moving it. You know, I've been talking about your work, and I am encouraging everybody who's watching this to go check out his work. So where can we find your work at?
If they go to my website, all of my trailers are there, links to articles that will link you to all my work. You can just Google my name and find a lot of my stuff. I think Counterpunch is still streaming on Amazon Prime, so you can get it there. That was a boxing. Danny Trejo's in that, Stephen Bauer. I mean, those are 2 guys that came in to do this film who didn't know me and did it. I have to tell you, I've met all my heroes in this business, and those were the only 2 that said, I don't know who you are, but I love what you're doing. I love your energy. Let's do it. I know the money's not great. I know we got to work fast, and came in and do it. And these are guys that don't preach about support and all that stuff. They do it. You know what I mean? They don't talk about it, they do it.
Today, I have the honor to introduce to you an amazing young woman all the way from Boston, Massachusetts, Miss Evelyn Brito. She is just a dynamo executive producer who I want to introduce you to. Okay, let's do it. Hi, Evelyn. How are you?
Good. How are you? Thank you for having me.
I am so good. Let's have some bochinche. Let's talk about you.
Okay.
Let's talk about you. So tell me, how did you come into show business?
Probably in my 20s. I was a young mom. My son was about 5 at the time, and I actually started doing hair. I went to hair school. Yeah, I went to hair school, and I started doing sort of makeup and hair on movie sets. And then I saw how the directors and producers were working. I'm like, I can do better than that, you know?
How did that door open for you? I mean, what made you decide you wanted to do hair?
First I changed my career within the arts, and I wanted to do art therapy. Then I'm like, I don't know if I want to do that. Then my cousin's like, yeah, do hair. All Dominicans are doing it. I'm like, yeah, I can do it. She's like, you can work in my salon. I'm like, yeah, why not? So I went to hair school. I loved it. And I was kind of really interested in producing. What is this producing thing journey? And so I talked to a really good friend of mine, and he's like, you can do it yourself. I'm like, well, how so? He said, you can go to a public access television and create your own show. I was blown away. I was like, what? We have that here in the hood. So I took classes at BNN, Boston Neighborhood Network. I took field and studio production, and I just fell in love.
You took what? Say that again.
Studio and field productions.
And so what is field productions?
Field is like when they had like a kids event or city event, I would go with the camera.
Oh, okay. So it was like a remote. You're out in the field. Okay, that's why it's field events. Okay, all right. At some point, you decided you were going to go to Los Angeles. What was that about?
Mm-hmm. Well, it wasn't gradually. I was deciding I wanted something more, you know, and I felt like going to school in Los Angeles was the best move. So I applied. I got a scholarship for a year, and then I left my son for 2 years here with his dad and with my aunt, and it was the best experience I ever had.
So what school did you go to in Los Angeles?
It's called the Los Angeles Film School.
Oh, absolutely. Yes.
Yeah, on Sunset Boulevard.
Yes. Across
Lots
the
of
street
fun.
from the Cinerama Dome.
Right, exactly.
Yes. Yes. So you went to school, and then you started to produce stuff.
Yeah.
So what was the first thing you produced or got your hands on?
Right. I did a lot of film students produce a lot of those. And just sort of testing the field in which area I'm interested, if it's editing, if it was directing, and I fell in love with producing because I kind of saw people's talents and say, okay, I think you should ask this person to film for you or this director. And then, I'm always asking how much those things cost.
So necessary. You must know budget. Oh, Lord Jesus. You got to know the budget.
I'm sorry. You want to get that camera? How much that is? A day?
Yes.
Yeah.
That's what the producer does. I mean, one of the many hats the producer wears is to know the budget of everything. From paper clips.
And I had a great professor.
So how did you get involved in Maria Costa's production of Macho Men and the Women Who Love Them?
I think she put an ad in the LA Film School board, and then I just applied. And I mean, it was a great experience. I called myself a producer whore. I will do anything. I produce anything.
That's hilarious.
After school, any projects, even if it's a small budget, I would produce it, whatever it is. Assistant producing, taking notes. So after Maria, I just, her theater, I just produce and volunteer anywhere I can.
Her stuff was a one-woman show, right?
Yes.
And so were you guys filming it? Or were you just doing the theatrical part of it? Or were you doing the film production of it?
I did most of the stage managing.
Oh, okay.
So I managed the talent, Maria's schedule, and also worked with the director. As far as the production piece, a lot of those camera angles, those were from students.
Oh,
students, yes.
Brilliant.
But I helped produce. Yeah.
Brilliant. Love it. I love when
I was wearing like 3 hats that day.
Yeah, I love when artists do their own projects. I am a big supporter of that. And then you had a project called Stripped that you produced. Tell me about that project.
So Stripped really came out from just living in the hood all my life, and then having a brother who lived in Detroit, and he was sort of in that kind of lifestyle. And he was shot. He was 25 years old.
He was shot when he was 25? Wow.
Yeah. He was in that lifestyle, so I really wanted to dig deep to his story. It's just sort of in the juvenile system. So I wanted to tell the story of the people who actually run the system, not the kids.
Oh,
so it's
okay.
kind of like looking at the, how they say it takes a village to raise a child. I wanted to look at that village and how did that village look like, and focusing on juvenile detention, especially girls.
And what did you learn?
What I took away from it is like learn my strengths and what are my strengths and what I can't do. I had a great experience writing it, directing it, and I learned a lot from it.
That's great. That is great. So since we're talking about your strengths, what do you think your superpower is?
I'm a connector at heart, so I think that's my superpower. If I see, there's an opportunity for someone, I'm gonna share. I'm not gonna. Why keep it? Why keep that information if that person may need it? That might help that individual get to where their goals. Of course, I'm gonna share it. I think that's my superpower. And the other one is keep simple.
Keep it simple. In 12-step programs, they have KISS, keep it simple, stupid. So you came to Los Angeles, you were here for 2 years, you figured out what you liked.
Right.
Because it sounds like you were doing all kinds of things. You were trying every hat on to see which one fit you.
Yeah.
And then what made you go back to Boston? Or was that your goal the whole time?
Yeah, it was my goal the whole time to come back. I had my son here. I really wanted him to maintain his education in Boston. So I came back for him.
And then when you went back to Boston, how were you able to use all the techniques and the craft that you learned in LA?
Well, I grew a big head, coming back. I was like, yeah, I can do this. People are going to hire me. You're extra confident,
But you know what? I think that's every student. Every student who graduates has that same outlook. And everybody's going to hire me now. And the reality is that no, everybody's not going to hire you now. You got to figure out a strategy to get hired. Mm-hmm. Nobody's coming to knock on your door and going, Evelyn, we want to hire you. It's like you now have to figure out a strategy to get yourself on the path you want to. So you get back to Boston, you have a big head, you're taking the world by storm.
Yep, took the world by storm, and boy, was I wrong.
What happened then?
Flat on my face. Couldn't get a job. It's really difficult. Just in the industry, not a lot of diversity in Boston. Hate to say, but I gotta say it. Sorry, not sorry.
Oh no, Boston is probably one of the least diverse places
in the industry. Yeah,
in America.
I'd be right on that one.
Yeah.
So it's definitely a challenge. Definitely a challenge. So I volunteer at WGBH, not as a producer, but volunteer, doing calls. So I learned a lot how nonprofit works. Then, I just dabbled with stage managing here and there. And then I decided to get a job, and where I worked for Color Magazine for many years.
So what is Color Magazine?
So Color Magazine is an online magazine that features professionals of color in the corporate world.
Oh, okay.
It was funded by Josefina Bonilla, and she noticed there was a sort of segregation when it came to the corporate world. So she decided to create this magazine where she highlights everyone, Asians, Hispanic, African Americans in the corporate, really highlight and celebrate their success. So I had experience working with that and learning about diversity inclusion and ERGs and all of that stuff. It's a great experience. I got to learn a lot about the business side of the film industry and how it relates to the corporate world, like how that connection between the two. I was like, okay, so this is like a path for me.
It's all about money. It's all about money. I mean, at the end of the day, you can be as creative as you want, but it's all about money. So then it goes back to the producer. How do you find the money? You're as a producer, you are challenged a lot of times to find money to make your project. So in learning nonprofit and then going into the magazine world and learning about corporate through that, were you able to connect the dots on how to start raising funds?
Yeah, for sure. So that was pretty much my job at Color Magazine. I found the speakers and also found sponsorship. So I was always on the phone, learning, using LinkedIn, and leveraging my connections there. And then, in meeting CEOs and talking to them, and they're just like any other folks,
Right.
Some carry their titles, some people don't. You know? And then once I started doing that, I said, wait, this is sort of the same. I can apply the same strategy when it comes to my films, or when it comes to producing. The same strategy when it comes to getting sponsorships and donation, all of that.
So what are 2 or 3 ways you use to get sponsorship?
Well, it's not easy. It's all sponsorship about relationship. As you know, it's relationship building, and it takes time. And you have to have something they will benefit from. So it's a mutual, beneficial. It benefits your company and it benefits that project.
Right.
So you have to make sure that you're tapping into the right. If you're doing a shoe commercial or raising money for a shoe movie, you can't go to a doctor, unless it's a shoe doctor, but doctor.
Right.
So you have to really sort of match it. Yeah.
So you have to pair the production with the sponsors.
Right.
You wanna make sure that they are giving that you're giving them the value for them to give you the money.
Exactly.
Okay.
Also too, leveraging your connections. So, for example, LinkedIn. If I have a friend who knows the head person at, Nike's, I say, hey, do you mind giving me an intro? So leveraging that connection, because, Cold calling is kind of old school. I've done those before and they're not fun.
No, they're not.
But as a producer, LinkedIn has been my best friend.
Oh, that's good.
Yeah. And the thing not to do is to ask for money right away. That's just common sense.
Don't call and say, can you give me money? Oye, ¿me puedes dar $1? Yo quiero dinero, chico. Dame el dinero. No, you can't do that. Okay.
How we say cuarto.
Yes. No. And what's something else not to do when looking for sponsorship?
Go straight to the top.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, sometimes it works and sometimes it doesn't.
Okay.
There's a chain of command, and if you don't start with the first chain, they may get pissed off by you.
Okay. It's good to know. That's good to know.
If the first person is the best friend from the CEO, they're like, hey, that person asked me, and I said no, So don't ever think that they don't talk, Well, there's some corporate companies that are too big, they don't communicate, but there are a lot of organizations that they do.
Yes.
Hey, I just told her no yesterday,
Yes. Unless you are, I take no no's. I don't take any no's. I know you said no, but I'm going to keep going till I get a yes.
Yes, exactly.
Okay. All right. So, I want to talk to you about Bodega Makeover, which I think is brilliant. For those viewers who are watching, tell us what Bodega Makeover is.
Yes. So Bodega Makeover is a web series. We provide store improvement and healthy eating options. We go city to city. So our mission is to go city to city to find bodegas in the need of a serious makeover.
So in doing that makeover, what are your intentions? Because it's not just cosmetic.
Right. Well, the intention is to look at the overall health of the owner, not just the bodega, well, only not bodega too, but the owner, especially the owner, and get experts to help him or help her. So again, the overall health of the bodega and then the community, because if you support the owner, that person has much of a success to be successful. You know what I mean?
Yes. One of the things that I love that you do with Bodega Makeover is to make sure that they have fresh produce, which is not something I remember from bodegas when I was growing up in New York City.
Yeah. Oh, do you remember the pan largo?
Yes, absolutely.
You go in there, you just touch it just a little bit, and it's nice and soft.
Oh, yes. Oh, wow. Well, I'm a bread fanatic, so That was like my thing. Italian bread, whatever bread they had, I was, the Wonder Bread, you could just squish it all up and then just,
Yeah.
you could put the whole loaf in your mouth by squishing it. Anyway. My favorite.
I'm getting hungry now.
Wonder Bread was my favorite. But so you have a health component to the makeover for the bodega.
I do. So yeah. So we're not saying to get rid of the cookies. We're just saying to provide healthier options. That the first thing that we see when we go into your store shouldn't be chips, and I think it's a challenge for a lot of bodega owners because they buy what people buy. If I want to get bodega chips, and if I'm going there all the time to buy it, the bodega owner say, oh, they like this, I'm going to order more of this, and so we're right now in the age where consumer have the power, and I think in our community normalized unhealthy eating, so we don't know what to ask until we did a survey. And when we did a survey, they're like, oh, okay, they do want healthier options in bodegas. And they don't want high price milk at a bodega. So we do a lot of back end work before we even look at the design. Because again, the goal is to make sure the bodega owner is successful.
So, okay, so you have the health component, but then you bring in architects or designers to kind of help reorganize the store and reconfigure it so that it's more productive. You're able to fix it in a way that it's more appealing to the eye, and that the spacing is better.
Yes, it's more welcoming, and friendly. Yeah, I think what we looked at is pretty much the bodega owner routine, and they're sometimes they're there by themselves, and then you have these high shelves, right? So we say, okay, we need to remove those high shelves because that way, if you're there by yourself, you can everything, And then we looked at sort of like the whole thing with COVID-19, sort of the spacing of the shelves, and sometimes they're just you have to kind of walk like this,
Right. Right. You slide. You go sideways. You slide sideways. Yes. Yes.
Exactly. And so we moved the chips to the back, and we did a nice customized produce table, which is great. And then we brought in some brighter colors, so we didn't lose the the Latino kind of flavor in bodegas. We just sort of made it more.
You refreshed it.
Refreshing it.
Yes.
That's it.
So now, in order to do a bodega makeover, let's say I'm a owner of a bodega, and I would like for you to come to my bodega and make it over. What is the budget on that?
It depends on the size of the bodega. So how we are able to identify which bodega we do make over is that we work with a nonprofit organization in that community. So the one in Boston is Madison Park Development. So we look at the needs and what programs do they have for the community. Mm-hmm. So they do have a healthy eating, healthy smoothie kind of program. And they wanted to work with bodegas for a very long time. So it was something that we collaborated, and I said, okay, tell me which bodegas should we go and visit. And then I just went door to door, speaking Spanglish and English and Spanglish at the same time. And so we identified one, which is Vega Market, a Puerto Rican family, mother and a son, own bodegueros. And sometimes when when you're in the family, sometimes you think, oh, I just opened a bodega and it's super easy. It's not. It's not easy. And,
right.
And they said it themselves, like, we've been here 3 years and it's, it's not easy.
I've heard you use a term, food desert.
There's a food desert, and then there's another word called food swamp. So food desert is where you in the community and you have to take 3 or 4 buses to your local supermarket. You may have a bodega in your neighborhood, but that bodega doesn't sell the produce that you need, so you have to travel. So that's what our food is, and that's where Roxbury, the bodega they were doing, they're in the food desert area. Food swamp is that you live in a community where there's tons of food, but not the right kind. So you have Burger King on one side, McDonald's, KFC, Dunkin' Donuts. You have tons of food. It's that you just can't find an apple in sight.
Gotcha.
That's the food swamp. Yeah.
How did you come up with the concept for Bodega Makeover?
So, I grew up in bodegas. My father worked in one. My uncle in New York, we would go and bring him his lunch. You know how Latinas are. Take this lunch to your dad or to your uncle. So I moved to a new neighborhood in Dorchester, Mass, with my daughter. She was about 2 at the time. And she really took to vegetables. I mean, she wouldn't eat anything but raw carrots, peppers, and tomatoes. So when I went to the local bodega, I couldn't find anything. And then I walked another block to the second one, still nothing. The third one, I'm walking for 20 minutes with a 2-year-old. Come on. I still couldn't find anything. So they did have vegetables, but it was boxed and it was rotten.
Ugh.
So I asked the owner, I'm like, why don't you have anything fresh? The broken refrigerator, you just can't afford it. Sort of like the whole same story I've heard for many years from bodega owners. They just don't have the resource. So I took my daughter to the bus. She was crying. I was agitated. And I kept thinking about, like, why do we, why do I have to go through this? And I said, that bodega needs a makeover. And I'm like, oh, wait. That aha moment, came. And I said, wait a minute, I'm a filmmaker. This is something that I know. And then doing research, I was like, wow, I really normalized unhealthy eating habits. And the community normalized it. I said, we need to wake up. So I did my research. I did a script. I pitched it to a few producers. I went to Nali, and I pitched it there to a few producers. They loved the concept, but they thought it was too good. I think they wanted like a novela en la bodega.
Right. That's out of their league. I mean, with
Yeah.
NALIP is the National Association of Latino Independent Producers, and they normally their strength is narrative. I love the idea of bringing this show together with community, with health, and with giving people a better life, not just the bodega owner, but the people in the community, so that they don't have to get on a bus or 3 buses to get some produce. They don't have to, take what's there if they can't get on buses, because some people don't have the ability to get on buses. They don't have that luxury. They're planted in that community. If they go 5 blocks from it, that's a lot. But they expect the bodega to have what they need. So I would like people to be able to support this project and be able to make this huge, because I think this should be a huge show, not just a sideshow. It should be as big as Extreme Makeover was, for ABC. So maybe NBC, maybe CBS, maybe Fox. You come along. Come on, we need you. You talk about diversity. This is diversity. So
Yes.
we
Call
want.
me, NBC, call
That's
me.
right. Give Evelyn Brito a call, and you can reach out to Evelyn at mybodegamakeover.com. And for
Yes.
those of you who are listening that are Latino, that are people of color, that know about bodegas, you know what? Go to her crowdfunding campaign and donate. Donate $5, donate $10, donate $20, whatever you can in the name of bodegas. What else do you need?
We want stories. We want to hear other people's stories. If they have a bodega that they know it's in need, we want to hear that too. If you moved to a different neighborhood, but you go back to get that, empanada, or I want to hear that too. We want those stories.
So I am cheering you on, Evelyn, because this is, first of all, this is a huge project. It's a huge undertaking, and God bless you for wanting to make this happen. So I encourage you not to give up, that this is something you have gold here. This is gold. It is wonderful. We here at Common Sense Mamita will support you as much as we can, because this is one of those things that is really embedded in Latino communities. You know, Latinos know about the bodega. And that is part of our culture, whether you're Puerto Rican, whether you're Cuban, whether you're Dominican. If you grew up in the States, you know about bodegas. Today, I am just tickled pink as you can see, I'm pink, to introduce you to our next guest. She is a young, up-and-coming, kick-ass filmmaker who I love and I'm so proud of. She's just amazing. So please help me welcome B. Monet. Hello, Miss B. How are you?
How are you?
I'm good. So let's talk about what you have accomplished. You went to Spelman,
I did.
Got your BA at Spelman. Mm-hmm. Then you went to NYU and kicked butt and got your MFA in film and writing. Mm-hmm. Okay. And then how soon after you graduated did you start pursuing your film career?
Yeah, it's that question. It's just interesting, you know, when someone tells you your biography and you're like, yeah, I did do all these things. I would say a few years, you know. Right after graduating school, I worked at Beyonce's production company. Then I was an office PA on patty cakes. Then I also taught documentary filmmaking to teenagers at Brooklyn Museum in Brooklyn, and then came out here in LA for a fellowship called Project Involved with Film Independent. So it's just been a very much of a journey, and then after that kind of got into commercials and branded content.
What did you learn working for Beyonce's company that would serve you moving forward?
I would say that if you are very serious about being in this business, that you have to be tenacious, that you can't take no for an answer. And even when you do have that be the answer, you still have to go against the grain and kind of be rebellious and say, okay, if I am to direct, if that's what I want to do, I have to find a way to do it. And I knew kind of with being there that if I wanted to be taken seriously as a director, I would have to find a way to make my own projects, to kind of not use that as my landing, that I had to find my own artistic abilities and write my own projects, because that wasn't enough for me. So for me, it was like, I need to be challenged. I need to do things that matter to me. And the only way that I was going to do that is if I left. And I was like, I can't stay here. Even though I was learning some stuff, I also just felt like in order for me to do my thing, I gotta move.
So when you graduated NYU, because I would think, well, let's back up. Yeah. When you graduated Spelman, was the electricity after graduating Spelman as great as the electricity after graduating NYU?
No, not necessarily the electricity, because I think I was younger. I literally just came out of Spelman and went straight to grad school, so I think you just have a lot of energy when you're a little bit younger, and you're just like, I'm just going to do this and I'm just going to go. But I think after going through film school, because that was a very rigorous experience for me, sometimes it was very racist, very sexist, very ageist. And so I think it jaded me a little bit, but I knew that I had a lot of important stories to tell. So I think with also working at Beyonce's production company, it made me get back on the hobby horse and say, okay, why are you doing all this? And I think also being reminded of my family and being like, I also want to get my mother, you know, a Rambler house one day. And I know that sometimes, you know, that may sound like random to people, but I know that if I want to do that, I still have to go after my dreams. And so for me, it was like just realizing you gotta push forward.
So let's unpack what they don't teach you at film school, because you went to not just a prestigious film school, but they really, I have to say, NYU kicks ass as far as teaching the student how to be a renegade well, not a renegade, but an independent filmmaker.
Yeah.
You know, to just go out there and do. So tell us what is not taught at film school.
Yeah, I think film schools will teach you the craft, but sometimes not necessarily the business. Even from doing a commercial standpoint, I didn't even know how to do like a treatment. So the first branded content thing that I did with the Me Too founder, Tarana Burke, my treatment for that I presented was so long. I didn't realize that it didn't need to be that long, but I didn't learn that in film school.
So what else does film school not give you?
Whew. I think even just as practical as learning about agents and managers, and like how do you get access to them, what do you say in the meetings, even if they're blowing smoke up your ass, excuse me, but you know, how are you going to serve me? How do I know that you're really invested in me for the long haul and not just right now because I have this catchy project, or because I'm diverse, or because I'm a part of this new wave.
A woman.
A woman, a black woman, whatever. How do I know that you really are invested in my career and me trying out new things?
Okay, anything else that film school does not give you?
I think everyone who goes to film school wants to be an auteur, especially NYU, a writer, director. Oh my God. But it's like, how many people actually will write and direct that you see, in the business working? That's not always a percentage. I know one of the first conversations we actually had at film school, he's no longer with us, but it was Bob Nixon. He was saying, look to your left, look to your right, look at your classmates, and only 5 of you are really gonna be, in the throes of the industry. And we're like, God, like, we just got here, But as you see with more and more of the climate and just people's personalities, I think sometimes if you are a favorite in film school, you peak and you feel like you've already made it. I didn't peak in film school. Nobody thought that I would be anything. Even I remember one of my cinematographers from Queen that I saw like a month ago. Somebody said to him, "Oh, you're going to be working with her for, her film? Oh, good luck." Because it was already this position of like, I wasn't, a hot shot at all. And so I'm glad that, film school is a great place, and it should be a safe space for you to learn, so that you don't have to learn in the world where, you have $20 million and you don't make back your money, and you have to really fall on your face and may not ever do a film again. So to me, I think film school is a great place for you to learn your voice, and your voice cannot be taught. A lot of people at film school, I felt, were trying to be Ang Lee or trying to be Scorsese or Spike Lee. Who are you? What is your voice? What are the stories that you need to tell? Nobody can inform that. And so to me, it's like, it's so important if you know who you are before film school. And if that's 21, if that's 35, if that's 40, okay. But just know when you get into this space, know who the heck you are, because they're going to try to break you. And I know that I feel like I definitely had to go through that experience, but I rebuilt myself through a lot of help, a lot of support.
Well, it's not that people try to break you. It's just that you have to be, they only let in either the golden children or the ones who keep breaking down the door. Those are the
and
two
windows.
Those are the people that make it. Not the ones who are the most talented.
Yeah.
It is the ones who've been walked in and said, "This is Monet is the shit."
Hey.
Or the one who says, "I don't care what you say. I'm coming in there. I'm coming in. You're gonna get me. You hear me? I'm coming in." Those are the ones the people who are tame and are waiting for the phone to ring or somebody to give them, they will never cross over. And it has nothing to do with talent. It has to do with persistence. And that's with anything. You talked about there are students in schools that are the darlings of the teachers in the school, and then they never go beyond that because they didn't have trials and tribulations in the school. Yeah. They didn't have challenges to say, okay, you got to come back. You know, it is imperative to not stay on the floor. You can fall on the floor, but don't you stay on the floor. Get your ass up.
Okay.
Get up.
Yes.
You know, it's like somebody can say no, B, and then you could go, see ya, wouldn't want to be ya, because I'm coming through. Right. That's right.
When you go to film school, if you go to any type of art school, you really have to know who you are, because you are going to be very tested in acting school or in film school or any type of conservatory. And you got to know what you stand for, because it's going to be, you're going to have your back against the wall sometimes. And are you going to, feast or famine? And especially being in New York, it's a feast or famine.
Yes. Do you think film school is worth it?
Oh, that question. Oh. It's hard because I don't think I would be the filmmaker I am without NYU. But I don't advise people to get into debt. So that's what's also a little bit tricky, because everyone's financial, situation is different. And NYU, USC, AFI, all these places are very expensive to go to if you're not a person who comes from money. So it's hard for me to tell somebody, yes, go to film school. What I would say is, if you choose not to go to film school, you still need to do your due diligence of becoming the best image maker. I call it more so being an image maker, because you are creating images that are going to live after we're gone, and it's almost like they're immortal, and you want people to say, God, this person really did an amazing job with creating, this little sector in the world that now we pay attention to because they created these images that matter. So yeah, that one's really tough in terms of should you go to film school or not. I would say if you don't, though, you need to be on sets. You need to be assisting directors, assisting producers. If you don't like that, get in the camera department. You need to get your hands wet. And the only way to get your hands wet is like being on sets, shadowing people, and also becoming a cinephile, which I want to become more of. Go, if there are filmmakers that you really are inspired by, look at their work from chronological, like from start to finish, and say, okay, Hitchcock, I want to start learning why were you like the master of suspense. Okay, watch his first film and then keep on going down. You don't have to be in film school to do that. So there are a lot of things that you don't have. I mean, you can
still get an education without film school if you
do the work.
Yes. So let's talk about film festivals, because I think for people of color, that's really an untapped area.
Yes.
What made you say, and what was the first project you said, I'm taking this to film festivals?
It was actually it's just ironic to think about this, because my grandmother gave me a certain amount of money to make this particular film that is still like my labor of love, and I'm going to turn it into a feature film. It's called Queen and has dots in between. And that was the film that I started to submit to film festivals, and learned a lot about, like, kind of, if you have a short film, it really shouldn't be over 15 minutes, because if you submit it and it's over 15 minutes, it's like, that's a lot of chunk of time for just one film. So me being naive and being very like, this is what I want to keep this scene, I think I submitted maybe like an 18-minute cut, like when I was starting to submit to festivals, and I wasn't also seeing them I wasn't seeing many yeses. So I had to learn that, go back into the cutting room and say, what actually needs to be in this short, what can be taken out. And that was a very great learning experience for me, because I didn't realize that, yes, it's a short film, but does every frame that is in this 18-minute cut need to be in there? No. So I would really charge people to make more 10 to 12-minute shorts, because that's really the sweet spot. Anything over like 15 is really hard for programmers, because you got to think, if there are 5, films in your block, and yours is taking up 17, 18 minutes. That's a lot. That doesn't even give other people an opportunity, and people's attention spans are just so short.
So when you went back and edited so that you could be within that 15-minute range, what started happening for you with film festivals?
There was a shift I saw when I recut, Queen and made it shorter. I was like, oh, wow, I guess I didn't need that scene. And I guess it makes me also think from a longer standpoint with making a feature soon that everything in the film really has to count. It shouldn't just be in there just for frills and thrills or just because it's a pretty shot. I think every frame needs to be saying something to the viewer, like, this is what I want you to feel, or this is how this character is emoting. And so I really learned that from...
And this film not only got into festivals, but it was the film that Aspire picked up, yes?
Yes, Aspire picked it up.
And Aspire, for those of you who don't know, Aspire is a television network that is partially owned by Magic Johnson. It's one of the black premier cable networks.
Yes, I think that's what's so interesting and why I charge people to make films that matter, because it's like when you make something that matters to you, you just never know how God is going to also reward you in these ways of just things that open up. I didn't know that by me making Queen, all these other things would also happen because I made something that was important to me.
So let's talk about that. So one of the things that I tell young people is when you graduate, don't rush to go get representation.
Yeah.
First, go put your projects in film festivals so that people start, so a buzz starts generating on your work, because it's better to have an agent want you than you begging an agent to take you.
Listen to this woman, yes.
So once you, because there are a couple of lessons here that I think is important for the viewer to know, is like you started out with 18-minute film. And then after all these submissions and not getting returns, you didn't give up, but you went back into the editing room and said, okay, I'm going to recut this and I'm going to make this a worthy piece. Not just, I have a short, I want you to watch it, but this short is important. And because you were smart enough, because I think it requires wisdom and to remove ego from it, because as artists, especially when you're starting out, you think you're the shit, and nobody can tell you anything, and that if you're not able to step back and go, okay, how can I make this better? How can I improve this? This is my reputation here. Not my ego, but my reputation.
Oh my God, yeah.
And I want to be in this business, so now I'm going to make corrections in order to get there. So tell me about Horizon.
Oh yeah, I'm so glad. See, that's a good, yes, you're doing your job. I love it, because Horizon Awards, I was telling you a little bit about that. Back a few years ago, I did this program called Horizon Award. I found it, and I feel like people are always like, how do you find stuff? The producer having you should kick in at some point. If you are looking for grants, looking for fellowships, looking for opportunities, no, they're not going to just magically appear. Get your ass on Google and look for them, because there's so many out there really looking for you to apply. But I think people are not applying themselves by even just doing research.
What should they enter?
You could do no film school, film grants. You could do film fellowships. You could do Horizon Award. You could do Sundance, screenwriting opportunities. I mean, there's so many grants and so many organizations that are dedicated to giving you and offering you support as a filmmaker throughout the journey of you as a filmmaker. So it's just like, it would be crazy to not apply to some of this stuff, or even, mentorship. Everyone needs mentorship. And so I was like, I am going to apply to this. It's for women filmmakers. Basically, I got this call that was like, oh my God. I mean, I got a call from Cassian Elwitz, who has produced Mudbound. He's produced Dallas Buyers Club. Is producing Dee Rees's current film. And I was just like, oh my God, like, I'm going to Sundance. This is crazy. Because I always feel like sometimes with these opportunities, they kind of feel like gambles. And it's like, yes, I feel like I'd be a great candidate for this particular opportunity, but am I going to get it? Ugh, I don't know. But again, when you make work that matters to you, God, universe, ancestors, I think provides opportunities for it to also be into the ether. And so for me, it was such a fly on the wall experience, but a beautiful experience for me to experience, you know, Sundance. It was also the Women's March that year. Was also had a beautiful screening with the other winner. Both of us had the opportunity of screening our work at the WME Lounge in front of agents, in front of managers, in front of other people in the industry. And that doesn't even happen for people who have their films programmed at Sundance. So the fact that we had all these eyeballs on our work was just like tremendous to me. So I feel like if you can find loopholes, if you can find ways to getting to where you want to be without being deterred when maybe you didn't get into Sundance that year, find another way. Or, oh, your friend is going to Sundance, maybe tag along and also go with your friend to Sundance and also meet who you need to meet, because you do have to be, I would say, in the game player regions, which are New York and primarily LA, if you want to do film and television. I'm not going to say that you can't be elsewhere like in Atlanta or New Orleans, but you kind of need to be where the industry is. And I tell a lot of women, people of color, to also put a profile on Free the Work. I am not represented by anyone right now. I have a lot of companies interested in me and all of that, but Free the Work allows you to create a profile and you can put your work on there and companies can see what you're made of.
freethework.com?
freethework.com.
All right.
Yes. And so if you are a director, if you are a cinematographer, a colorist, if you have a certain discipline, I would definitely say to create an account with them, because you never know. A lot of companies are saying we do need, you know, a woman. We do need a person of color to direct this. And they are doing that. I think it still needs to be a bit better with Cruz, because even though I just directed a promo and we had predominantly all women in the camera department, there is like 90% women. Camera op, ACs, all of that, that's not the norm. And it's like until we make this mandate of actually hiring the other,
right,
it's not going to happen.
Balances out.
Yeah.
When you came out here, how did you get into Involve?
Oh, yeah. So Project Involve is with Film Independent. It was a program that was 9 months at the time. I think they've shortened it now. I think it's like 5 or 6 months. But I felt like, okay, 9 is my favorite number. I feel like 9, a lot of beautiful things happen with 9. Also pregnancy. I feel like, okay, if I'm out in LA for 9 months, I should know by the end of my time if I can handle this place or not.
And you submitted and got in?
Yes. So I submitted my short film, Queen, had an interview, had I think 2 interviews. And then they were like, oh my God, you have to be out here in October. So then I had to tell my parents, I remember it was Labor Day weekend, and I had to tell them, oh yeah, by the way, I'm moving. And not a little place, like all the way to the West Coast. They were very freaked out. I don't really have a lot of family out here. So they were very concerned. But I was just like, just how I moved to Atlanta for Spelman and then grad school for New York, I got to go to the big leagues, and I got to go where the bigger players are, and I got to figure out if I can do this, like really do it. Like film school put me through the ringer, but let's be challenged again. And so being out here I was definitely challenged, but I'm so grateful that I came out here.
Did they provide housing, or you had to take care of that yourself?
So they do not, unfortunately, they do not provide housing. I had a little bit of grant money stashed away from film school because of being a thesis student. So I was able to matriculate and come out here with a little bit of the grant money that I had. So it's harder, I think, to just move to any, like, especially that's a big move. So I had money that I was able to live off for most of the time that I was out here. But towards the end of, you know, the project involved journey, I had to figure out, okay, how am I going to make money here? What am I going to do? So that's when I really had to start kicking it into high gear.
And how did you make your money?
I interned at Sundance during, I think 2017, that summer I interned. That was an amazing experience to also see, how does Sundance work? How do they choose projects? How are people pitching, you know, their projects to them? So it was a very great experience for me. Again, another opportunity to learn.
So let's go to mentors. Tell me how you look for your mentors.
Wow. You know, I think I'm still looking for mentors in a way. I think I've definitely have had help. I think nobody is self-made by any means. But mentors are really challenging because I think I've always been looking for people who can keep it real, can be transparent. Especially, it would be nice to have a mentor who's another director who's eons and steps ahead of me. I was lucky enough to shadow Dee Rees on her film and to see what that experience was like, and also to speak to her during Sundance when I did Horizon Award. But it would just be nice to have more filmmaker, more director mentors, and that's sometimes tricky because sometimes people will view you as.
And Dee Rees is a black filmmaker who did Mudbound,
and
yes.
Pariah.
And Pariah, yes. Pariah was her breakout film.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. But I feel like I have mentors who are maybe not necessarily directors, but producers or actors, and it's just been great to be able to still get their counsel over the years about, should I, you know, sign with this person, or should I deal with this producer? And so I think it's hard.